All right, what's going on, everybody? Looks like we're live. I'm joined here with Vince Goodrum. We've had a bit of a back and forth for like a few years now. You've been making videos about me, and I think I've responded to you a few times. But, I challenged you to a debate like a year or two ago. It's been a long time, and then we've finally set it up now. So you agreed to debate vegan nutrition, how it relates to muscle growth, strength. My position is so long as protein intake is adequate, meeting minimum recommended intakes for muscle growth for like bodybuilding, 1.6 grams per kilogram body weight, or roughly 0.75 grams protein per pound of body weight. There doesn't seem to be any difference in terms of ability to grow muscle and strength on a vegan diet. So how about I hand it off to you?
Okay. Well, first off, I'll actually concede that fact there that, if you combine things correctly there, you can have a complete protein source there. But there's a number of things that you have to consider. And this is the stuff that was taught to me by Leroy Colbert, for many years. I consulted with him. I'm sure you remember him. You made fun of why, I got on your case for, basically. So he was a good friend of mine. He was a pioneer bodybuilder. But here's some of the things that, I'm going to go over. Now, number one, while you can combine everything in order to have a complete protein, there's a number of things that you have to, that you also have to concede. Number one, on a vegan diet, you have a reduced choice of available food and supplements here. And what I point to basically is the fact that me being on an omnivore diet, now I can eat plant-based foods. I've made videos with companies that I was an angel investor with, that being, for example, Gardein, which was sold to Pinnacle Foods here and stuff. So I understand and, everything about as far as vegan foods are concerned. But as far as choices are concerned, one day I can eat vegan foods, the next day I can have a steak, and the next day or so on. So you have to concede that there's a reduced choice of available foods and supplements here, which may not mean much, but you live in Toronto, Canada, and I live out here in Piedmont, South Carolina. So there's no supplement stores or anything like that. No cable, no fiber. Fiber internet. The closest store to me is a Dollar General, and in a Dollar General, you're not going to find, vegan food. So that's number one. Now, I also want to point out number two is that when you're on a vegan diet, the food and the supplements are going to be a lot more expensive there. Wouldn't you agree with me?
No. So as far as supplements go, like if we're talking about bodybuilding supplements, creatine monohydrate is a vegan supplement. So long as you don't get it in like a pill form or mixed with in some like whey protein or something. If you just get pure creatine monohydrate, it's a vegan supplement. As far as protein goes, actually, at least if we're talking about unflavored, unsweetened protein, generally speaking, vegan protein's cheaper. Like soy protein isolate costs nothing, pretty much. You can like look up the prices. I don't know what, like if you look at any bulk prices online, but I've ordered from Canadian Protein before. Their unflavored soy protein isolate, I think, is their cheapest protein powder. It might be the rice protein, but they're all pretty cheap. Even when you go to like a local kind of store, like a GNC or something, usually the soy protein isolate's the cheapest one. So I disagree there. And as far as like, if we're talking about total diet, so normal foods you would eat, there's a little bit of mixed evidence. So there's a study, there's a well study. That's what it's called, WHEL. So well study. It was basically a trial to see if cancer survivors did any better on a plant-based diet, if they had like lower reoccurrence of cancer showing up, or if their survival rate was higher. Well, part of the analysis in the well study was to see if it increased food costs, because they wanted to see, okay, well, if we tell people to go on a plant-based diet, is it really a practical sort of is it a practical sort of treatment, like considering cost? So
Okay.
what they found was, yeah. So what they found in the well study was it only increased food expenditure by $1.22 per person per week. There was also a Guelph University study that analyzed changes in the Canadian Food Guide, the Canadian Food Guide for 2019, I believe. It was recently changed to be more plant-based, and they found for a four-person family on average, the more plant-based food options would save a family about 7% on their food costs per year. So there's a bit of mixed evidence. I'd say it ends up probably being a net neutral. What this really comes down to is just food choices. Like if you're going to buy more expensive products like Beyond Meat and, I don't know, Impossible Foods, like all the time, your food costs are going to go up. But if you stick to cheaper choices like rice, beans, lentils, potatoes, shit like that, you're going to save money. So it really all just comes down to food choices.
Well, I mean, I have to stop you there because I don't think you've read my LinkedIn profile. I am the owner of Caliber Fitness and Medical, which I've ran for over 20 years, selling supplements. I was a regional distributor for Vitamin Power and Genesis Nutrition. So first off, what you see in a store, and I'm just going to, and I hope everyone's listening, what you see in the store as far as pricings isn't always what it seems. Now, when I go and buy bulk wholesale products from the U.S., not like Frank Tofano who goes and buys it from China or some weird location there. I can get whenever I'm selling supplements there and I'm pricing them, I can price it between 200 and 300% there, as far as supplements are concerned. When it comes to any type of vegan supplements, whenever I get them in, I can only mark them up maybe 50 to 75% in order to somewhat match what you can get as far as a vegan product is concerned there. So you also have to consider that, because if I actually marked up any type of vegan supplements 200 to 300%, then it would be twice as much. And a lot of distributors such as myself do the same thing. They have to mark it down, cut costs, and you cut your profit margin. It is more expensive. Not only that, I have a limited amount of suppliers that I can work with as far as obtaining vegan supplements. And, I have to be very careful as far as those vegan supplements, because, a lot of these companies here, and you have to be very careful about it. Plant-based diet isn't just all plants. Are you familiar with Oxycontin there by any chance?
What?
Oxytocin, I'm sorry.
Is that you're talking about the thing in soy that they use to separate like the protein or something?
No, Oxytocin is what you call the love hormone. And you see a lot of growers will use Oxytocin in order to actually inject fruits and vegetables to make them a whole lot bigger. So when buying vegan supplements here, I have to make sure that those products don't have not been injected with Oxycontin as far as the making of those supplements here. So that actually in itself brings up the cost as far as finding suppliers, and it actually limits it though.
Okay.
Well, let me finish.
Sure.
Here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Not only that, even when you're not having unscrupulous farmers, injecting that stuff, the majority of your plants that are out there, they use a high amount of ammonia in order to grow the plants a lot quicker, because of the nitrogen that basically miracle grow the plants itself there. So whenever I'm trying to price everything, and trying to get the right bulk materials there, in the end result, Richard, is that, you get a product that is high priced. And not only that, it actually expires a lot quicker than, your regular supplements. Now, I see that you did bring up creatine. And here's the thing, creatine has to be synthesized there, in other words, for a vegan to actually use, as compared to, Regular creatine is actually made from cow gelatin, basically, a waste product of the cow industry. So, regular creatine is cheap because it's readily available. It's a waste product as compared to, a synthesized creatine there. So like I said, what you see in the store and what you shop for is not the actual true cost of vegan supplements. It's just more expensive because there's limited resources, and you obviously have to be very careful of it there, as far as that's concerned. But I'm gonna let you speak on that there.
Yeah, okay. So as far as cost is concerned, like it seemed to me when you brought up cost that you're talking about end consumer or end user cost. I think you'd agree then, like regardless of the actual cost of the item and how much you have to mark it up and what margins you can, get out of it. As far as the end consumer is concerned, vegan protein supplements for the most part are either the same, like it really depends. Like, what is it? There's a big one on YouTube that a lot of Vivo Life, I think. Something like that. That one's more expensive. Yeah, that one's more expensive. There's more expensive protein supplements, but if we're talking about like the cheapest stuff you can get, like the stuff I take, just like bulk soy protein isolate, unflavored, unsweetened, it's as expensive, if not probably cheaper than most whey protein options you can get. So as far as the end consumer is concerned, I don't see how cost is really an issue. That's really only a problem for somebody who's selling the stuff, trying to make, bigger margins. And the oxytocin thing that you brought up, do you have any research showing that plants grown with oxytocin have any ill health effects in humans? I've never even heard of this.
Well, yes, there's not any studies there, but you have to agree with me. It's kind of weird that you would inject the love hormone into something like a plant. And, when I'm selling supplements, regardless as to whether there's a study as to any effects there, Richard, simply put, I have customers that I have to look out for. And, I don't want that stuff in, because at the end of the day, what I actually sell is pretty much my reputation, basically. I can't go and market a particular product that I know that's unadulterated, regardless as to whether there's research or not, because, 20 years down the line, there may be some actual effects. Now, as far as soy is concerned, soy is a complete protein. It's one of the few, vegan products that do have, that is a complete protein as opposed to beans, for example. But one thing you have to remember, and I think I ran into one of your fanboys up there in terms of the phytoestrogens. Now, phytoestrogens don't really affect humans as much there. It's not going to make you grow bitch tits or testosterone, which I had to correct. The only issue that I have with soy protein is when you take in too much, and there are some studies on it. I don't quite have that type of paperwork with me, but a lot of if you use too much soy protein, it can disrupt your endocrine system. And, the endocrine system is responsible for all your hormones, metabolism, testosterone growth and everything like that. So, and the phytoestrogens, they're, even though, like I say, you're not going to get bitch tits or lose any testosterone, it still has some effects there. I usually recommend soy protein to, women with hot flashes, for example. So, you can't just eat soy protein all the time there indefinitely. You still have to combine a couple things, and that's where, and that's just exactly what I was getting to as far as, the reduced choice of viable and available food and supplements here. But go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So I haven't seen any research demonstrating that the phytoestrogens in soy, like I think genistein is, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, genistein, whatever. I haven't seen any evidence that it has any significant effects in human males, at least. With women, I have seen that, high consumption can actually affect things like menstrual cycle. I know my wife Jasmine, when she eats a lot of soy, it can actually bring on her period a little sooner. So I've seen stuff like that, but as far as males are concerned, I haven't seen any research showing that it increases estrogen or decreases testosterone in males. I only know of 2 case reports in all the medical literature. And in the 2 case reports, both of the men who reported having like suppressed hormone effects from soy, they were eating like virtually nothing but soy. I mean, literally nothing but soy. The one guy was eating like fucking soy flakes for breakfast with soy milk. He had like soy chicken nuggets like all day, nothing but soy. And same with the other guy, like just it was pretty much nothing but soy. And considering that there are only 2 case reports in all the medical literature where somebody actually reported like hypogonadism from excessive soy consumption, I think probably what happened was those 2 people in those case reports, they probably had some sort of genetic mutation where they just reacted far more than normal to soy. Even at high levels of consumption beyond what you'd normally see from Asian countries, doesn't seem to be any negative effects on testosterone, estrogen, nothing like that. And I mean, anecdotally, I eat soy like all fucking day. I have soy milk, soy protein every day, multiple times. I probably eat about 100 grams of soy protein every day. Guy Brian Turner here on YouTube, a vegan bodybuilder, he did an experiment where he would eat like tons of soy, like several blocks of tofu every day for a month, and he ended up getting his testosterone and hormones checked. His total and free testosterone was higher after consuming like what would be considered excessive amounts of soy. So I'm not convinced that soy has any significant effects in humans, especially if we're talking about males. Maybe you could make a case for females, where if you notice some of these effects where, okay, earlier onset of menstruation, maybe it has an effect on women, which would make sense because they have more tissue that responds to estrogen. They have ovaries, they have like female breasts. So what's your take on that?
Well, I mean, you just nailed it right on the head there. And like I said, I had to correct one of your fanboys and told him straight out that because he was, and I think it comes from the old Muscle Tech commercials to where they were selling their whey protein and they would just go and say, and like I said, this is when you were still in diapers, basically. They had these little commercials to where they were comparing whey to soy, and they had a guy in drag, basically, as far as phytoestrogen. But, like I said, women are still part of that vegan market there, and that's one of the things I've had to deal with whenever I had female clients. I usually had to get them a fortified rice protein with coconut in it there, basically, as a substitute. But, again, rice is a incomplete protein source. I mean, it's an incomplete protein source because, it lacks, leucine and lysine, for example, there. So even with the fortified rice protein and you combine it both together, that's, women are still, I think the majority of women are actually vegans there as opposed to men. So
yeah, there's more women.
Right. I mean, but when it comes to soy protein, that's pretty much the only protein. Whereas me, I can have egg whites, and I don't eat egg yolks or anything like that. I only do egg whites. I have access to chicken. I have access to beef. I have a variety, and I can still, have my, plant-based proteins and stuff like that. So when it comes to, just speaking as far as females are concerned, me and you are men, but, when it comes to the vegan diet, I'm sure that whenever you were training and you were giving nutritional advice, you had men and women, and, simply put, when it comes to women, they're going to have a lot more trouble being on a vegan diet because, one of the main go-to products for vegans is soy. They can't really eat too much soy, basically.
Okay, so I disagree a little bit there. I would just, go on a per person basis. If a woman who I'm like coaching or something is eating soy protein and she like notices that her periods are lasting longer or they're closer together, like so they're sort of irregular. They're not at the end of the month. They happen like every 3 weeks or something. If a woman starts noticing those effects, then just switch from soy protein. But again, I haven't seen too much research on soy protein exposure really impacting women all that much. I've seen a little bit of research showing that it can cause earlier onset of periods or make them a little more severe. And by more severe, I mean you're talking about on average lasting like an extra few hours, not even like a full day. So I'm not totally convinced that women in general would get a negative effect from like high intake of soy. But if I saw that, like, okay, once a woman starts eating more soy and then periods are more severe and shit, then yeah, sure, switch to a different protein supplement. But it's not just rice. I mean, you also have pea protein, which is also pretty much just as good as soy. You're still getting pretty high amounts of leucine. Rice protein is lower in leucine, but again, if that's a concern for you, you can just supplement with a BCAA.
Right.
So it's not really that big of a deal.
Right, and then you have to get back to again costs. BCAA. Sure. You still have to have it synthesized as opposed to natural occurring because it still comes from that. It is still bovine based there basically as far as BCAA because, and we're talking about muscle in particular. Now me being out in Piedmont, South Carolina, and you're in Toronto, and I'm from Asheville basically. I'm from Asheville, so it's as far as the United States is concerned, it is the hub of vegan products here. I can walk down whenever I lived downtown in Asheville. I can literally walk to any store and it would have every vegan product. And this is in the late 90s whenever I lived in Asheville. But right where I live, for example, I can't just simply go to a store and just simply pick up vegan products. And a lot of people here, they can't go to a vegan store. And as far as expense is concerned, let's say you're a college student there, and you have very little money to work with. While you can have those vegan foods and supplements there, when it comes to a college kid, they're gonna, when it comes to going to the shelf at any type of store, they're gonna reach for the regular creatine as opposed to a synthesized creatine because it's just a cost basically. But I'm getting off subject because I do want to get into the amino acid profiles because really, the debate's really about not being able to build as much muscle there.
Sure. Okay. Sure. I'll just respond to what you just said there, but then we can get into amino acids. So, for one thing, you said, what was I going to say? Yeah, as far as cost is concerned, I'm not totally convinced that, even in a situation where you have to consume something like rice protein, I don't really think cost is a concern. Like, pea protein is an alternative. It costs almost the same as much as soy protein isolate, and it also has a high leucine content. So I would just say if you're eating a rice protein and taking a BCAA, you could probably save a little bit of money. Just by eating a pea protein supplement, it would cost virtually the same as soy protein. Anyway, even if you were talking about a situation where, I don't know, for some reason you don't digest pea very well, you can just consume more protein overall. Just eat more rice protein just to make up for the reduction in leucine content. And I mean, with e-commerce, just because you can't go to a local store, I mean, you can just go on Amazon or something and order crap online, and if you're talking about bulk suppliers, which are all going to be online, you can save more money there. So I don't really see that as a huge concern, cost anyway.
I mean, but you're on the consumer side, and I'm on the
Sure.
owner side there, of course. I mean, and one thing I want to mention about rice protein, and the stuff that I have generally sold as far as rice protein is fortified. The reason being is because it is missing that leucine and lysine. When you add that together, you then have a complete protein source as far as rice protein. But let's go ahead.
Yeah, sure.
The regular
Amino acids.
We'll just agree to disagree on that there, basically. Because, like I said, I do realize that you're on the consumer side of things here.
Well, I think we fundamentally agree. It's just that I'm looking at things from a different perspective, and you have different interests. But as far as like the consumer side of things, I don't think cost is really that big of an issue. And as far as getting in total protein intake is concerned, I think it's pretty easy as a vegan.
Okay. Well, I mean, this leads into the other subject as far as, we're going to get now into basically building more muscle is, simply the complexity, because everything that you've mentioned, it takes some time and study there as far as, you can do it, I can do it, most other nutritionists can do it, but, from that in person that's beginning, they're going to need a lot of help in order to, get all the amino acids. Like, for example, I mean, a lot of them go to beans and rice and everything like that. But when you have beans and rice, you get a lot more stuff along with it. You get carbohydrates. And, as a person that's doing a lot of bodybuilding, and whenever I was dieting down for shows, we try to keep our carbohydrates as low as possible there, as opposed to, and you can get the mix right, basically. But, when it comes down to available, viable vegan products here, when you mix beans and rice, you're going to get a complete protein source, but you're going to also get those carbohydrates as well. You take nuts, for example, it lacks lysine. Okay, you can then eat rice along with it, but nuts actually they're very high in saturated fat though. So what you end up having is you're not able to put things together because, whenever you're getting down in weight and you're wanting to compete, you have to deal with, your ratios, not only as far as to planning your meals, but then you got to go through the ratios just for the foods that you have to pick from, as opposed to, just having some egg whites and then asparagus, and put 2 small meals. It's a lot easier to plan an omnivore diet than it is, in terms of getting down to competition as well as building muscle, as opposed to, a vegan diet though. But I'll let you respond.
Yeah, I'd agree. If you're going to be on an omnivorous diet, your food choices are obviously more plentiful because you can eat meat and plants. But as far as it being more difficult to appropriately plan a vegan diet for, say, a bodybuilding competition where you have to worry about getting in macronutrient needs along with staying within a caloric budget, as long as you know what you're doing, I don't really think it's that much more difficult. There's things like tofu, TVP, seitan. There's plenty of mock meats that use like a pea protein base. There's plenty that use a soy protein base as well. You've got edamame. You do have beans and lentils, but I'd say for the majority of a contest prep, you can work that into your daily diet. And you also just have vegetable options. That does add to your total protein intake. There's also like nutritional yeast, which is pretty high in leucine. So you still have a lot of options. And I would say, like, I've done contest prep on a vegan diet before. I found it more easy than on a meat-based diet. I just find it easier to lose weight on a plant-based diet. That's probably mostly due to just the volume of food. The food volume tends to be a bit higher on a plant-based diet, probably because the fiber in plant-based foods, and they usually have more water content as well.
Right, and I mean, I will agree that on that end there. But the things that you've mentioned as far as alternatives are concerned, we're talking about fortified products. We're talking about nutritional supplements, synthesized basically synthesized supplements here. And the problem that you run into is, and I mean, the biggest thing, and I'm just going to point this out, it's synthesized. It's not real, basically. It's not natural. And a lot of these, whenever you manufacture creatine from these synthesized sources, they can be very destructive to the environment there, just by the way of production. Whereas, regular creatine there, like I said, cow gelatin, it doesn't hurt the environment. I definitely get that, being a vegan, people are vegans because they don't want to hurt the animals, which we'll get to that in a minute as far as moral ethics are concerned. But in terms of biodiversity, in terms of environmental issues are concerned, creating some of these vegan supplements can be very damaging to the environment there. And that's one thing that you have to consider. When you're actually manufacturing these particular products here. But in getting back into the complexity, everything that you've actually mentioned, you still have to jump through hoops basically in order to get to that, diet itself. And that's exactly the reason why there are no vegan champion bodybuilders out there. There's no IFBB Pro vegans. There has been no vegans that have won the Mr. Olympia. There are no vegans that have won the WNBF World Championship. There's none that have won the NGA top prize. There isn't any there. The reason being is simply because despite all the planning, despite everything that you put together, it's a lot easier to just basically screw up the diet there, as opposed to someone on an omnivore diet that can get things precise. They don't have to worry about mixing beans and rice. They can just have egg whites. They can just have asparagus, clean protein sources there, and it's easier to plan the diet. They can get it right, in other words, and that's why they are champions.
Okay, so there are IFBB pro bodybuilders that are vegan. One that I know of is Nimai Delgado.
Yeah, I've heard of him.
He was featured on the Game Changers briefly. I think the main reason you don't see too many IFBB pros, especially those who competed in the Mr. Olympia, is because vegans, depends on the location, but I'd say if we're talking about Western countries like US, UK, we only make up about 3% of the population, at most. So yeah, the reason you don't see too many, vegan bodybuilders, on the Olympia stage is just because there's a very, very small percentage of the general population that's even vegan. So then when you're talking about an even more niche group like bodybuilders, yeah, you're going to see even fewer vegans just because you have to be vegan and a bodybuilder, two niches. And then you're talking about an even more niche, like champion pro bodybuilders that are in the Mr. Olympia. If you were to find like a section of the population that it like fits within a similar kind of low percentage niche, like, I don't know, half black, half Asian people or something, you'd probably find the same thing. Like, how many half black, half Asian, Mr. Olympias have there been? Zero, as far as I know. And it's just because there's few of them. It has nothing to do with half black, half Asian people having a lower ability to build muscle. It's just it's a tiny niche, and I think there's also some cultural differences too. Like you mentioned, 80% of vegans are women. There's not even any such thing as like women's pro bodybuilding anymore. It's just dead. On top of that, I think a lot of vegans are kind of more health conscious. They're probably less likely to take drug use to the like extreme where these pro bodybuilders are taking it. So there's plenty of reasons for why you would not see too many pro bodybuilders that are vegan outside of issues with protein. I don't think, this protein thing is an issue at all.
Right, but remember, we're talking about vegans can't build as much muscle there, and bodybuilding is the quintessential, that's the quintessential standard of building muscle there. Now, even though vegans only make up a small percentage of the population there, at the same time, there should be, even with that small percentage, there should be some champion bodybuilders if it was an efficient diet there, And I've met Delgado. He is an awesome, bodybuilder. He's out from, I believe, from Mississippi, and stuff. He's an awesome bodybuilder, but what has he won there, basically, And
okay, well, I mean, he has clearly, he says he's natural. Take that for what you will, but I mean, obviously he's not taking the drug use to the extent that somebody like, Ronnie Coleman or Jay Cutler is taking it.
Well, I mean, I used steroids too back in the late 90s there. And, I'm not going to discuss what I used for my final show. It was legal supplements and everything like that. So I never questioned whether Delgado use steroids or not. I don't even consider that as a factor, because when it comes to steroids, you can take as much steroids as possible, but if you're sitting on the couch, you're still not going to build muscle. The key to building muscle is calories and water. And you still got to put the training in. You still got to get the diet. The diet is the biggest part of bodybuilding. Steroids is just like a key that just unlocks the potential of the body, but you still have to get that nutrition right. You still have to do the training there. So even with that small percentage, there should be some champion bodybuilders. The only IFBB pro bodybuilder that I know that was actually vegan and did an IFBB pro show was Jim Morris. Now, he ate meat up until the age of 50. But by that time, most of his shows was done, and he only did one more show. I think it was the '96 Masters Olympia, and he finished 10th. Like I said, bodybuilding is the quintessential. That's the set standard for building muscle. So if a vegan diet there, regardless as to whether there's a small percentage of the population that's actually competing in bodybuilding, then there should be more champion bodybuilders. And I have to disagree with you on women's bodybuilding. Women's bodybuilding is coming back there, Now it's had it's coming back. There's been a lull in it, I will admit it, because it's gotten a little bit too free to where they should.
They wiped it from the Mr. Olympia for a few years.
Right.
Like it wasn't even a thing. They just had different categories like classic physique and stuff.
Yeah, but they're going back to the Corey Everson standard of women's bodybuilding. So you'll actually see that pick up there, basically, But again, we're talking about, the subject is building as much muscle as a regular meat eater or omnivore. And the fact is that, the proof of the pudding is what you eat, basically, It's what you eat, and there's nothing you can really say. So you have to concede that someone such as myself, as an omnivore, or any other omnivore out there, is going to simply build more muscle than a vegan just because of that complexity.
Okay, so Vince, do you know of any half black, half Asian Mr. Olympia winners?
No, I don't know any.
Okay.
There hasn't been.
Okay, so So based on that, can we determine that half black, half Asian people have an inhibited ability to grow muscle compared to whites or blacks or just plain Asians? I know Hidetaka Yamagishi has competed in the Olympia. I think he's the only Japanese guy to ever compete. Like,
there's been a couple more that have been IFBB pros here.
Okay, yeah.
He's running a smooth.
As far as Mr. Olympia goes.
As far as Mr. Olympia is concerned, I don't even know why you're bringing up race. Race is not a factor in being a body.
Well, clearly it is, because there have never been any half black, half Asian people who have competed in the Mr. Olympia.
But if they were on an omnivore diet and they did it correctly and they had the genetics to do it, they would be.
Okay, well, how can you prove that, since there's never been any half black, half Asian person who's won the Mr. Olympia, or even, as far as I'm aware, even competed in the Mr. Olympia?
Well, it's a non-factor there, because you're just simply talking about race. What we're talking about is nutrition, and we're talking about ability. Now, it is true, you have to have the genetics, like the guy you mentioned, Delgado. You have to have the genetics in order to compete, but you also have to have the right diet. I think
Okay.
we're talking about building muscle there. I mean, what does half black, half Asian has to do with building muscle? It has nothing to do with it. It's talking about race. In other words, it's a non.
Well, you claimed that apparently the scientific standard that we have to go by to determine what is better for building muscle is whether or not somebody is being like a Mr. Olympia contender or who's won the Mr. Olympia. So if you're going to use that standard for plant-based dieting, okay, well, there's never been a Mr. Olympia who's been on a vegan diet. Well, okay, as far as I'm aware, there's never been a Mr. Olympia winner or even contender who's been half black, half Asian. So if you're going to claim that standard is not suitable for determining whether or not like a half black, half Asian person is good at building muscle, then I don't see how you could say that standard is also is somehow suitable for determining whether or not a plant-based diet is adequate for muscle growth.
Okay, so I tell you what, there. Let's take bodybuilding off the plate there. Let's do something like, just powerlifting, for example. There, just take that off the plate. Any champion.
You're going to run into the same issue, dude.
Right.
Can you like, it's the same thing. Okay, can you name a half black, half Asian powerlifter who's ever won like an IPF record or anything? Probably not.
I don't even
not that I'm aware of.
I don't even know why you're bringing up race there.
Well, it could be anything. It could be anything. Like, I don't know. You could, somebody with spots on their face. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, it could be any small niche subset of the population. Like, the point I'm just making here is the reason you see this discrepancy where most athletes, top-level athletes, are meat eaters is because there's just a lot of meat eaters. And the reason you don't see too many top-level athletes who are vegan is because there's just simply not many vegans. So if you're going to claim that, the standard where, okay, well, what top-level athletes are, meat eaters or vegans, and then, okay, we should be able to apply that standard, evenly across other populations, like, I don't know, half black, half Asian people, or people who have a lot of freckles on their face. Like, it could be anything. If we're going to claim that if we don't see any small niche subset of the population as top-level athletes, then if we're going to be logically consistent, if we don't see them as top-level athletes, then that means them being a member of that small niche subset group gives them a disadvantage when it comes to athletic capability. But you're not saying that. You're saying, okay, well, no, and when it comes to half black, half Asian people, or people with freckles, that doesn't count, but somehow it only counts in the, vegan context. So I just see that as a double standard. I'd rather rely on actual research and some sort of empirical data.
Yes, but
which I have, by the way, if you want to take a look at some.
Well, I mean, the only thing I've discussed is simply diet and, genetics. I mean, you're just bringing in race, but I have to disagree with you. Whenever there's a will, there's a way. Otherwise, we actually have a half black, half Indian, half whatever vice president there. Things are just going to happen whenever there's a will and way. But I want to move on from this here because I don't think we're going to come to a viable agreement or disagreement on it.
Okay, well, wait. The standard that you set is that if we see top level athletes who fit within, I don't know, a particular niche, that means that niche is not disadvantaged in terms of athletic capability. Well, I've just given you an example of half black, half Asians. You don't see too many half black, half Asian people in high level sports. So if we're going to be logically consistent, then you'd have to admit being half black, half Asian gives you an athletic disadvantage.
Yeah, but how many people are half black, half Asian?
That's exactly my point. So that's exactly my point. We don't see too many vegans. We don't see too many half black, half Asian people. There's not even that many people with like a shit ton of freckles on their face. Like, it doesn't just have to be race. Right. So like, that's exactly my point.
Right. And there's only a small amount of vegans, but I'll touch base on that when we go over moral obligations. Now, I think we got off subject as far as supplements are concerned. You mentioned creatine. What about B12?
Yeah, just supplement.
A supplement?
Yeah. You should just take a supplement.
Right. So, and what's the reason why you got to take a supplement for B12 for vegans?
Yeah, because you cannot get it naturally, quote unquote, in your diet, so you have to supplement it.
Okay, but what if you didn't have supplements around, all you had was food?
Okay, well, then you'd kind of be screwed, but with e-commerce, you're talking about incredibly few situations.
Yep, ding, 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 And like I said there, I live out in Piedmont. I live very far away from...
Okay, well, dude, are you telling me it's impossible for you to get a B12 supplement?
It's not impossible to get a B12 supplement there.
I think it's pretty easy. It's just literally a few internet clicks.
But it's a supplement there. As an omnivore diet, I don't need to go get any supplements.
Oh, okay.
Well, and here's the thing there. Didn't you use B12 injections at one point in time?
Yeah, at one point, just to see if it made a difference.
Oh, come on. What was the real reason you used B12 injections?
Yeah, so when I moved to Belgium, I didn't take a oral supplement. I was just relying on fortified foods, and I just calculated it up with the fortified foods I was eating. It roughly averaged to, I think it was 250 micrograms per day, B12, and I was suffering some symptoms of B12 deficiency. It might not have been B12 deficiency, but I just figured I'll just take B12 injections, see if it helps. Didn't really do anything. I did notice that after I ate, I became less tired. I don't know if that had anything to do with the supplement, though.
Right. So you have to concede there that on a vegan diet there, without having a supplement there, with the exception of a couple of things like flaxseed, which has, a little bit of B12.
No, it doesn't have any.
Huh?
It doesn't have any.
I'm thinking something else here. My bad. But you do have to concede that B12 is a big factor as far as these vegan diets are concerned, and you are correct there.
Right. So I don't want to overstate the importance of a supplement on a vegan diet. I mean, you can find plenty of situations where omnivores have to take a supplement. Vitamin D is a great example. There's very few food sources of vitamin D. And especially among blacks that are living in, northern climates where they don't have good access to sun all year round, and you also have to wear clothing. 83% of blacks in the United States are vitamin D deficient. And really the only practical way to overcome that deficiency is to take a supplement. Your only other option is to eat fish, and it has to be particular types of fish that are high in vitamin D, and you'd have to eat a fairly high quantity every single day. It's very difficult to actually get 2,000 IUs vitamin D per day through diet. there aren't really any other reliable food sources of vitamin D. So, like in that circumstance, the only practical situation is to take a supplement. You can find landlocked areas of certain countries, like in China, where they have virtually no access to iodine because they don't live near the sea. They can't eat sea vegetables, and the soil in their region has virtually no iodine in it. So you can find entire villages of people who are mentally retarded and suffer from goiters and shit because they can't get any iodine. So aid workers come in and just give them a fucking iodine supplement. So like supplements are a good thing, even in modern Western countries where, you know, on average we have the most nutritionally complete diets. We still benefit from supplementation. Like women, you know, they menstruate, and some women have really heavy periods and they need to consume more iron. Like sometimes it's not really practical to get all that iron from their diet and they have to take a supplement. So supplements are a good thing. I don't see why it's a problem that vegans need to take B12. Even the animals you eat take B12. It's entirely possible for cows to become B12 deficient because of a lack of cobalt in the soil. So they're given B12 supplements as well. So I don't see what the problem is with supplements.
Right, but me being on an omnivore diet, I've never had a problem with with vitamin D deficiency, and I've never had a problem with B12 deficiency. You know,
yeah, that's just you specifically. If you look at,
let me finish what I'm telling you here.
Sure.
Right, but you just openly admitted that you had B12 deficiency. What was?
Well, I don't know if I did or not. I just took injections just to see if anything would happen.
Well, what made you think that you had a B12 deficiency?
I was experiencing hallucinations, and that tends to happen when I'm under extreme levels of stress. I just seem to be prone to that. But that is also a possible symptom of B12 deficiency. So just to make sure, I just took some injections just to rapidly increase my B12 levels. Didn't help. It seemed to be more a stress issue. So, yeah.
But you have to admit that a factor with your B12 deficiency, if you had one, would have been your vegan diet. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I just want to mention, even if you're eating fortified foods, I'd still recommend just taking a B12 supplement. There's no reason not to.
Right. And I mean, you mentioned the other countries, and I would, I don't like using the word retarded or anything like that. It's a very negative.
It's a medical term, like, sure, mentally disabled, whatever.
Yeah, well, that's a lot better word to say. That's just me there, or so forth.
Sure.
As far as that word is concerned. And you're talking about landlocked countries. They can't get Amazon. So what?
Okay, well,
that means they can't get supplements. So
that's great. Like, that's great. But I mean, the point I was making was that there's plenty of situations where people need to take supplements, even in the U.S. So I don't see what the issue is with vegans taking a B12 supplement.
Right, but veganism, as far as a vegan diet is concerned, you have to agree with me. There's only certain areas, to where you can follow a vegan diet. I mean, we have all the advantages.
Certain areas.
We have all the advantages in Canada and in your country, Canada. I have all the advantages being in the United States. But if veganism is supposed to be a worldwide movement, there's a number of parts in the world that simply can't follow a vegan diet because of, the things that you've mentioned there, essentially. But I think we've killed this subject with
Not quite. So, I mean, you're talking about the vast majority of the world that could go vegan. You're like the only parts of the world that really can't go vegan are like maybe really small remote villages in Asia, fucking uncontacted tribes people like North Sentinelese and shit. Like, okay, but I mean, out of the 7 and what billion people on the planet, I'd say probably 90% of us at least can follow a vegan diet. Like, I mean, There are people living in situations where they have to commit like fucking warfare to survive. Like does that mean warfare everywhere is justified under any circumstance? Like I don't see how that's relevant. Like if we can go vegan, I think we have a moral obligation to do so.
Well, I mean, warfare is never needed. I mean, I was in the army and everything, and I understand the dedication as far as protecting the country, but warfare is never, I'll agree with you, warfare is never a way to solve problems. I'd rather talk it out, just like me and you are talking there. But, there are places to where you can't follow a vegan diet. How many places in the world cannot follow an omnivore diet?
I'm not sure. There are a few actually because it's outlawed. There are some places in India. I know there are certain areas where it's actually outlawed to eat meat.
Right. I mean, I watched that. What's the name of that show where that guy is cooking? Grandpa's cooking, or it's one of those Indian shows where he's cooking up a whole bunch of meat. So I mean, there's nowhere in the world where they can't follow an omnivore diet because they, depending on where they're at, they either have to eat, they only have a choice to where they have to include meat in their diet. But I think we've covered everything as far as the muscle building there, unless you have something else to.
So, okay, well, do you still disagree that vegans are at a disadvantage for muscle growth?
I think I've already proved that.
How did you prove that?
Complexity, expenses, reduced choice of available foods, and so.
Okay, well, you're talking about potential issues you could have, but those are all manageable. So
real issues, they're not issues.
Okay, well, those are potential issues that are all manageable. So assuming you could manage all those issues, are vegans at a disadvantage when it comes to building muscle?
Right, but you're speaking from the endpoint that you live in Toronto, Canada.
Okay, well, that's fine. That's fine. Like, let's say in an ideal situation, do you think vegans are at a disadvantage when it comes to muscle growth?
I mean, I have to concede. I mean, if you put everything together right there, yeah. But
okay, cool. Good enough for me.
Right, but you got so many pitfalls here. You can still screw it up, though. But let's
that's good enough for me.
We're good on that. So I think let's go over moral obligations as far as veganism is concerned. I'll let you start. So
yeah, sure. So I look at veganism from a rights perspective, and I think that veganism is a logical extension of human rights. So I think in similar circumstances where we'd give humans rights, we should give animals similar rights in similar circumstances. So you'd have to provide some sort of symmetry breaker between humans and animals where, say, a right to live should not be granted to an animal. And in order to be logically consistent, if you were to say trait equalize a human being to an animal, you would have to agree that a human being in that circumstance should not have a right or particular rights. So you could use a trait, for instance, like intelligence. You could say, like, okay, a chicken isn't as smart as a human being, therefore, the trait is intelligence. Intelligence determines whether or not you should have a right to life. But in order to be logically consistent, you'd have to say if a hypothetical human being had the intelligence of a chicken, then they should have the right to life taken away from them. You don't have to use the trait intelligence, but that's just an example so you can more easily understand.
So what you're trying to point to is that chickens should live, cows should live, deer should live. Is that what I'm getting at, though?
Yeah, so for the same reasons we would give a human a right to life, we should grant animals a right to life as well. You'd have to provide a symmetry breaker.
Okay, but there's only one problem to that.
Okay, what?
Animals have to die. Humans have to die. Otherwise, there's no biodiversity. So let me ask you a question there. When you die, what happens to your body?
Rots.
It rots. Also, it decomposes. It breaks down into nutrients. And
Okay.
what eats those? I mean, and it goes into the ground to where the plants eat. The cow eats the grass. We eat the cow. We die. We rot, and it goes around and around and around and around. Now, as far as animals are concerned, a wolf is still going to eat a deer. Sentient beings eat other sentient beings, just like the Mandalorian. This is the way. And I mean, we are
Oh,
human.
oh,
We are. I mean, but at the same time, we are animals, and we have a requirement to consume food in order to survive. So it's
sure.
a
Okay. Okay, so I just want to clarify your position. Are you saying that it's okay to eat meat because it's natural? Or are you saying it's okay to eat meat because it's some sort of necessary thing for survival?
it's a necessary thing for survival.
Okay, and how is that the case?
Well, because, you know, I mean, as far as eating animals and consuming animals are concerned, I think we're gonna. It looks like we're streaming back to the original conversation as far as availability. Now, let's say everybody in the world was vegan. Let's say that nobody ate any meat whatsoever. Then you have problems here. Do you know why they have deer hunting season where I live?
It's because of overpopulation, I'm assuming.
Exactly. So if you didn't go and eat deer, what happens there? It overpopulates. Deer are very aggressive animals there. They will destroy farmland like crazy. I mean, I mean, there's a report and I looked it up before we did the debate. There's a report from State Farm that deer by itself costs $4 billion a year just from overpopulation of deer. Now, I'm not going around and shooting every single deer that's out there. You only have per year. You can only hunt 6 deer a year. That's I believe 2 with antler. 2 of them have to have antlers. The other 4 doesn't have to antlers. So there is a cause and effect to not eating meat there. Wouldn't you agree?
No. I don't understand how just because deer become overpopulated in a particular area, that means we have to eat meat.
So what are you going to do with them?
Okay, well, there's plenty of methods to control overpopulation. I've actually done some reading on this. The main reason deer are overpopulating is because at one point they were driven to near extinction, and the government reforested a lot of farmland. And what that ended up doing was massively increasing their actual habitat range. And if you would just decrease their habitat range, that would reduce the issue with them overpopulating. There are also methods of using chemical sterilization that are just as, if not more effective than hunting at controlling their populations. So what I'd ask you, Vince, is can you name the trait lacking in deer that if lacking in human beings would justify murdering human beings due to overpopulation?
Oh, there isn't there because humans are the apex predator, and deer simply aren't. That's just the way of life.
So you're saying you can't identify a trait that would make it justifiable to kill deer but unjustifiable to kill humans?
Well, you're classifying that as murder. And murder by definition is
I didn't even use the word murder. I just said kill.
kill. Why do we kill deer for? Why do we kill cows for? Why do we kill chickens for?
Okay,
Let me ask you this. Let me rephrase that there. Is the purpose of a farm? That's a nice cat there.
Thank you. He's on a vegan diet.
Yeah. But subject there. Okay, so are farms set up just to abuse animals there? Yes or no?
No, well, the purpose of a farm isn't to abuse animals, but that is what happens.
Right. That's what happens here. And those are assholes that are actually there. And the reason why you have people abusing animals is because the world population is building up there. So we have an increase in cultural needs here as far as
Yeah,
you can't feed the planet on just asparagus and broccoli. You just can't do it.
actually, it turns out you can.
No,
Actually, it turns out you can. If you read Chapter 5, page 76 in the UN's latest climate report, they actually found that they would be able to feed the population that's expected to exist in 2050, which I believe is 10 billion, on a fully plant-based food system with adequate nutrition being achieved while using less land than we currently use for agriculture today. So one thing that a lot of people don't take into consideration is that animal agriculture requires far more land than plant agriculture, so you can grow more food if you just eat plants. So no, as far as food security and having adequate nutrition for a large population, a plant-based food system is superior.
Right, but even in the production of agriculture, even for plants, you're still killing animals.
Yes, but the issue is, for one thing, I don't see that as a rights violation. And two, I mean, there are going to be future technologies where we can minimize that, like vertical farming and shit.
But they're not there yet. They're not.
Okay, that's fine. I don't see that as a rights violation. Like, if there were a hypothetical group of human beings that were going around destroying crops, and the only way to stop them was to use lethal measures, I don't see that as a rights violation. That's just property protection.
But you're talking about sentient beings here. I mean,
that's fine. Like in a similar, okay, if there were a group of hypothetical human beings that were destroying crops and making it harder to feed a population, are you saying if the only way to stop them was to use lethal force, it would be wrong? Like, the better option would be to reduce food availability and have, like, many people starve or something?
Right, but you're talking about killing. You already the vegan foods that you eat, you have to have that expected knowledge.
I acknowledge that.
You're indirectly killing animals.
I acknowledge that, but the issue is I don't see that as a rights violation, and given the alternative, eating meat, fewer animals are killed in meat production. Or sorry, plant agriculture. Fuck that up. Yeah, fewer animals are killed to produce plants versus animals.
Okay.
Sorry?
Right, but at the same time, there has to be alternative solutions, and the problem with the whole planet becoming nothing but plant farmland and stuff like that, as opposed to having slaughterhouses, is simply put. And I've not heard of that report as of yet or anything like that, but I don't believe there's enough viable farmland and there's not enough viable water in order to simply feed the planet there. There's better solutions there. Now, as far as moral obligations are concerned, despite the fact that you have a disagreement, with meat production, do you think it's right to go and throw paint on someone that wears fur?
Yes.
Why? Would you just go and
if somebody was wearing human skin, do you think it's reasonable to throw paint on them?
Well, why would someone be wearing human skin?
I don't know. Maybe they watch Silence of the Lambs. There have actually been cases where human skin was used to make lampshades. So, like, if somebody's actually supporting that sort of industry where humans or animals are being killed just to make some sort of fashion garment, I think it is morally justifiable to throw paint on, say, like a hypothetical human skin coat or a fur coat.
Right, but how long have humans been wearing fur?
Quite a while. How long have humans practiced slavery? Like, I don't see how that's relevant.
Well, it is quite relevant. So, since the dawn of man, since we wore fur, all of a sudden, you're going to just go and throw a bucket of paint on someone that is wearing fur for no reason whatsoever. That's the way they
There is no, well, there is a reason. It's because they're supporting a literal Holocaust.
a literal Holocaust. So you're comparing the killing of animals to Jews. Is that what I'm actually hearing?
Yes, because you haven't been able to create a symmetry breaker. You've even acknowledged there's no symmetry breaker between humans and animals.
Well, Hitler killed Jews because he felt that they were vermin. It had nothing to do with the consumption or food or anything like that.
Well, wait. If Hitler killed Jews to produce meat, would you say that's not a Holocaust?
They're not one and the same there. I mean, we're talking, I mean, you're just making hypothetics here.
Well, no. If Hitler killed Jews to produce meat, would that not be a Holocaust?
But Hitler didn't kill Jews because...
okay, but if he did, would that be a Holocaust?
We're talking hypothetics here. Come on now, Richard. Come on.
Yeah, the point is, you're claiming because, you know, a mass killing is committed for some sort of practical reason, then it's not a Holocaust. So, with your logic, if Hitler killed Jews for meat, would it not be a Holocaust? I'd say it would be. I don't see why any particular practical reason, if there's any particular practical reason to commit a mass killing, I don't see how that disqualifies it from being a Holocaust.
Right, but there's a big difference between killing animals for the consumption for human beings and just going out and wantonly killing a human being just because they're Jewish there, because they do not, because of, you know, ethnics there. I mean, Hitler.
Okay, sure. The issue I have here, Vince. So Vince, I just don't want you to go off on a random tangent. The issue I have here is that you said because animals are killed for some sort of practical purpose, like food or fashion, that disqualifies it from being a Holocaust. And I asked you if Hitler killed Jews for a similar practical purpose, like food, for instance, would that disqualify it from being a Holocaust?
Well, it wouldn't there because they're human beings. They're not animals.
Okay, so can you name the trait then? Name the trait that's lacking in animals that if lacking in trait equalized human beings would mean mass killing trait equalized human beings would not be a Holocaust?
Can cows build buildings? Can they build a car?
Okay, so mentally disabled people can't build buildings or build cars. There's plenty of people who aren't even mentally disabled, who just don't have good technical skills, who cannot build buildings, who cannot build cars. So are we going to, like, if Hitler rounded up people who weren't good at math, who weren't good at technical skills like building, who were mentally disabled, it would not be a Holocaust if he killed those people?
Well, what's the percentage of disabled people in the world? No.
That's irrelevant. That's irrelevant.
Yes, it is irrelevant. So how many cows in the world can build a car?
I don't see how that's relevant.
Well, it is very relevant. 100% of the cows cannot build a car, cannot build a structure.
Okay, so what percentage of a species has to be unable to build a car for it to be okay to murder, people who can't build a car?
Well, again, you keep using that word murder. And that only pertains...
Well, I'm talking about a human. I'm talking about human context.
Well, you asked me to name an aspect as far as to the differences between humans and animals.
And I was asking you about murder in a human context, so I don't see how that word is inappropriate to use.
Well, because murder is illegal as far as human beings are concerned. It's not for cows and chickens there.
Can you define murder for me, please?
Murder is the unjustified killing of a human being. It's an unjustified killing of another human being.
Can you explain what a justified killing is?
Well, a justified killing would be, for example, a police officer, excuse me. As far as a justified killing is concerned, let's say there's a shooter in a building, for example, a school. Let's take school shootings there. Guys running around killing other people. What do? That's you got to take them out. That's a justifiable killing.
Okay, so a justifiable killing is a killing that would end up saving more lives
Correct.
than it would. Okay. All right. So, can you name the trait?
What do you mean, name the trait?
Okay, okay, wait. You didn't actually name the trait. You said no. Where were we? You were saying because there is 0 cows that can build a car, therefore it's okay to murder cows. But there's a certain percentage of people who can build cars, therefore it's not okay to murder people. So, what percentage of a human population has to be able to build cars to grant them the right to life?
Well, again, you keep using the word murder of cows there. You can't murder a cow because
I didn't say cows. I asked you what percentage of humans have to be able to build cars to give them a right to live.
well, I mean, having ability has has nothing to do with the right to live there. I mean,
Well, you mentioned that. Okay, well, if it has nothing to do with the ability right to live, then why would you mention ability to build cars?
well, I was separating it as an example, the difference between animals and us, human beings, which is
Okay.
predator.
Okay, then I just want you to clarify your position then. I asked you to name the trait, so it's not the ability to build cars. So what's the trait specifically?
Well, I mean, I don't even see why you're even bringing up traits to begin with there. It's a cow. It is a chicken there. Now, they may, again, and I'm going to repeat myself again, they may be sentient beings there, but just because you kill a cow or a chicken doesn't make it wrong there, period. Because the reason why we kill cows, the reason why we kill chickens is for the consumption of food there. Now, you may not like it, but that's just the way it is there, you know?
Okay, well, we could kill humans for food, so I think you still have to name the trait.
Well, killing humans, again, is illegal.
Okay, well, slavery at one point was legal. Murder in certain contexts is legal in certain societies. Like, it was okay, it was legal for Hitler to kill the Jews. I don't see what legality has to do with anything.
Right, but it wasn't legal for Hitler to go kill the Jews. At least in, I mean, I guess German law.
Well, not in the U.S. In Germany, it was.
Right, but why did they go and stop Hitler for? Because he was
Well, it's because Hitler was waging war with allied countries. That's the only reason the U.S. ended up getting involved in World War II. Actually, the reason the U.S. got involved with World War II was because of fucking Japan. If Japan had never attacked the U.S. would have never gotten involved. And nobody even knew that Hitler was killing any Jews. That was until like later in the war that anybody even found out. And the first reports actually came from Russian concentration camp liberators. And when they would tell anybody, nobody believed them. They were like, oh, that's fucking crazy. They must be making shit up. So no, that had nothing to do with the war.
right. But if Hitler was killing nothing but dogs there, do you think anyone would say anything about it? Would they go and mobilize a force of other countries in order to stop them from killing dogs? And by the way, they do that in South Korea to begin with. They go and murder a whole bunch of, or excuse me, why did I say murder? See, you got me slipping. But they kill plenty of dogs in South Korea. They go and
and I'm against that.
dolphins and stuff there. So yeah, I agree. I'm as far as clubbing dolphins or anything, that's not a viable thing, as well as sport hunting. But that's the whole point there. As far as the world is concerned, you just got to take things the way it is there.
Okay, so if human slavery was commonplace, that's just the way it is. Guess we're just gonna keep doing it. Like,
right, but
what? Just because
because it had to deal with human beings here.
Okay, so are you telling me any sort of social justice that doesn't involve human beings isn't important? Like, are you fine with people torturing animals?
No, I'm not fine with torturing animals, but that's not what happens to cows and chickens. They're not being tortured.
Well, they clearly are.
How so?
Okay, well,
there's only a scant few people in the farming industry that do abuse animals, and those are assholes. I will concede that there are a number of abuses in the farming industry to where they're abusing animals here. But there is.
Can you define abuse?
Excuse me?
Can you define what constitutes abuse?
Well, abuse is, for example, when a farm worker goes and kicks a chicken there.
Well, no, I mean, just define abuse. I'm not asking you to give me an example. Just define abuse.
Physically causing pain and suffering for no justified reason.
Okay, so so there is no need to eat animals. We can live on a completely plant-based food system. And if you're going to claim that causing harm or pain for any unjustified reason is abuse, the majority of animals are harmed and experience pain in factory farming, which constitutes the majority of farming. Like when you see chickens in tight confined spaces where they can barely move around, and their beaks are also cut so that they can't peck at each other, and they're also thrown into these tiny small crates on transport trucks where in Canada, either they'll literally boil alive and die in the summertime because it can get up to 35 degrees, or in the winter, they'll often freeze to death. And I've gone to some of these slaughterhouses and protested in front of them. Maple Leaf has a slaughterhouse in Toronto, downtown. And I've seen the shit where you'll see animals that will literally cook to death or freeze to death. And then if they're unlucky enough, I guess you could say, to survive the whole journey to the slaughterhouse workers don't give a fuck about these animals. They throw them around all the time. That sort of working environment is incredibly stressful. And you can see footage of undercover investigations where they're encouraged to not care about these animals. They'll just tell you, yeah, throw them around, doesn't matter. The factory managers will tell you, yeah, they don't really feel anything. They're barely even sentient. They're like insects. They tell workers this, and then they're under stressful circumstances where these animals will peck at them, scratch them. They have to meet certain deadlines. They have to get shit on a conveyor belt real quick. This all creates an environment where abuse is just commonplace. And there's even, I'm almost done. And there's even technical issues with the whole the slaughter line, if we're talking about chickens. Oftentimes they are stunned via electrocution, but the way the conveyor belt works for the stunning, they have to make sure that the voltage and everything is high enough. I think it's like a stun bath where they're dipped into electrocuted water. Well, if the chicken isn't immersed enough in the water and there isn't enough transfer of electricity, or if the machine basically isn't working, oftentimes they won't be stunned, and then they get their throat slit open while they're fully conscious. In pigs, they're actually put into gas chambers, and it's one of the most painful and terrifying ways to die, being suffocated to death with CO2. The air actually becomes acidic because of the CO2 concentrations, and it even burns their eyes. So, this is abuse that doesn't have to happen. So, by your own standards, abuse is commonplace.
So, anyone that eats or supports the chicken industry or anything like that, you basically disagree with. Basically, you're against the chicken industry, right? Am I?
I'm against any form of animal agriculture, yes.
So, I've seen some videos of you eating at KFC. Is that right?
Yeah, plant-based chicken at KFC.
Well, Richard, let me ask you a question. When you handed your money to the cashier, do you think they put it into a little tiny jar and put it specifically for the purpose of plant-based social efforts? No, when you go and eat at KFC, I will tell you right now, even I don't eat at KFC because of the same things you mentioned, because it's not just the wants and abuse of animals there, it's the fact that it's kind of ignored. So essentially put, you are supporting the chicken industry just by eating at KFC, even if you're eating plant-based foods. You've also eaten at Burger King, Beyond Burger.
Actually, no, I haven't.
You haven't? Didn't you have some?
No, not Burger King. I've gotten vegan burgers from A&W, right. And I think McDonald's had them for a period of time. but not Burger King.
Well, I wasn't aware of. I didn't know you ate at McDonald's, but like I said before, someone being a vegan activist, all of a sudden you're going to go and eat at McDonald's, which is one of the largest restaurants that depend heavily on that that bovine industry, and then you go and eat at KFC, which is one of the largest restaurants out there for chickens here. So,
yeah, sure. So, okay, so I'll explain why that's not morally hypocritical or wrong or anything. So, when you buy plant-based products from an establishment at KFC, you are essentially voting with your dollar to encourage them to make more plant-based products. If I were to just completely boycott KFC, well, there's plenty of meat eaters who don't have any interest in, supporting plant-based products. So if more people buy plant-based products from these establishments, they're going to be more and more incentivized to make more plant-based products, where hopefully eventually they'll make nothing but plant-based products. In fact, Burger King right now is experimenting with a fully vegan Burger King, I believe in Switzerland. And if we're going to have the sort of standard where, okay, if you give money to a non-vegan company for vegan products, that is somehow morally wrong or hypocritical, well, then you'd literally never be able to get food from anywhere. Local grocery store, they're not vegan establishments. You could say, okay, well, if I buy literally broccoli from my local grocery store, okay, well, that doesn't go into a special jar for only plant-based products. Like, they could, in theory, use that money to buy more, I don't know, chicken or beef stock. So, like, this sort of standard is kind of ridiculous and makes no sense.
Well, that's the whole point there. That's your moral dilemma as far as
that's not a dilemma.
Yes, it is there, because let me explain. What does KFC stand for?
Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Do you think they're going to ever change it to Kentucky Fried Plants? It's always going to be Kentucky Fried
Maybe.
Chicken. They're going to...
okay, well, can you explain to me how me buying plant-based products from KFC increases the demand for chicken?
Well, money has to go. Money is money. When you hand that money to the cashier for that plant-based foods, some of it could go to plant-based efforts there, and you still have to you have to concede that it's also still going to support the chicken industry, the industry that you hate most there. But you're the one that actually, you and the rest of the vegans, you're the one that has the moral dilemma as far as not having the ability to avoid not coming into contact with any type of beef or dairy. You eat at Doomie's, right? For example.
Yeah, I've eaten there a few times.
What does it say at the bottom of their menu?
I don't know. What does it say?
It says some supplies may use animal-based products.
No, it says there may be trace amounts.
So if Doomie's has no problem working with a supplier that also supplies dairy products there, that's why would you go and eat there for? If Doomie's
because I don't see anything morally wrong with that. I'm not supporting animal agriculture, and if we're going to have the standard, then I literally wouldn't be able to eat anywhere.
Right.
Even most of these vegan products, they're actually owned by companies that also produce meat products. I think Gardein was acquired, Field Roast was acquired by, I think, Maple Leaf Foods or something. So, so for one thing, you haven't actually demonstrated that buying plant-based products increases the demand for meat-based products. If you believe that, then if I buy broccoli from a grocery store, am I increasing the demand for chicken?
Right, but again, you're talking about your dilemma, basically.
Okay, so if I buy broccoli from a grocery store, am I increasing the demand for chicken?
No, you're not.
Okay, so I don't understand how if I buy pea protein made burgers from KFC, I don't understand how I'm increasing the demand for chicken.
Because KFC, you're trying to concede that one day Kentucky Fried Chicken is going to stop serving chicken. I got news for you. KFC is always going to serve chicken. They will not.
Okay, and And my local grocery store might always indefinitely supply chicken. So if you acknowledge that me buying broccoli doesn't increase the demand for chicken, then how does me buying a plant-based product from KFC increase the demand for chicken?
Well,
this sounds like a double standard.
Well, your money is going towards the chicken industry.
Okay, so if I buy broccoli from my local grocery store, is it increasing the demand for chicken?
No. But that's
okay. So then, can you explain to me how if I buy plant-based products from another food supplier that somehow increases the demand for chicken?
Well, you're trying to change the subject there. The point
I'm not changing the subject. Somehow KFC breaks the laws of supply and demand, where even if I buy broccoli from KFC, apparently I'm increasing the demand for chicken.
Well, if you tried to use that argument down here in Asheville with the hardcore vegans that we have here, they would literally kick your butt.
That's great. Okay, I don't understand. I don't care what they think. If they don't have a good argument,
well, they're your brothers.
That really doesn't matter.
I mean, I'm just going to make the point: KFC is never going to serve any. I mean,
okay.
They're never gonna change. So
okay, great. I don't understand how that has to do with your claims about supply and demand.
Well, I mean, here's the thing there. You're so opposed to the cow and the dairy industry and the chicken industry, but if I was opposed to, and if I was in your shoes, and if I was still a vegan, at no point in time I wouldn't care if they made asparagus sandwiches. I would never eat at KFC because I have the knowledge that KFC eating that asparagus sandwich at KFC would be me supporting the chicken industry.
Okay, so can you explain to me how somehow supply and demand works in a completely unique and different way at KFC? So if I buy broccoli from a grocery store, according to you, I don't support the chicken industry, but apparently if I buy broccoli from KFC, that supports the chicken industry. So can you explain to me how supply and demand works completely differently at KFC?
But you're eating at KFC and you're giving me the explanation. No. Let me finish. You are giving the explanation that by eating at KFC, a plant-based meal, that you're actually supporting the efforts that one day KFC is going to serve nothing but plants. Bull fucking shit. They will always serve shit.
At the very least, I'm not supporting, the supply of chicken. I'm not increasing the demand for chicken. So can you explain to me how the supply and demand concept works completely differently at KFC, where if I buy broccoli from my local grocery store, I'm not increasing the demand for chicken, but if I buy broccoli from KFC, I'm increasing the demand for chicken.
Right, but a grocery store sells a variety of products here.
Sure, yeah. Okay, if KFC were to sell a variety of products, like if half their menu is plant-based in the future, like would that mean if I buy broccoli from KFC, I'm still supporting the demand for chicken?
No, again, it's a grocery store. KFC's main source of business is selling chicken. And
okay.
So let me finish. So McDonald's main source of income is selling hamburgers. All right. As far as a grocery store is concerned, it sells everything. So, and I mean, everything.
I don't see how that's relevant.
I mean, my whole point is everything that you're doing in order to stop the beef and dairy industry and the chicken industry is never going to work there. And
yeah, so you haven't answered. I've
answered the question twice there.
You actually haven't. You haven't given an explanation.
No, I'm going to move on there. Do you think?
Okay, sure.
Okay. So, do you think you and the rest of your vegan fanboys, with all the protesting and throwing paint in the people's faces, do you think that you're going to actually stop that industry? Ever?
I don't know. Maybe.
You're not.
Hopefully.
You're not.
Okay. Okay. I don't see how that's relevant.
Right. But at least I've come up with solutions in order to permanently do it. And you've not, though. And it has nothing to do with being a vegan. I'll explain that in just a minute here. And it's a company that I invested in a couple of years ago. Okay. But here's my whole thing. And this has to do with moral ethics here, essentially. Okay. It is immoral to walk up to someone, regardless as to whether they are wearing a fur coat, and throwing a bucket of paint on them. And the reason why I mention that there is that's some of your friends there. They go up there and yell and scream and spit on people and throw buckets of paint. Go down to these slaughterhouses up there and yell and scream, threaten their kids and everything. You're talking about morals, and this is immoral behavior. You're not part of the solution. You're just part of the problem. And
okay, so I asked you this before. If there was like hypothetical human skin jackets, do you think it would be morally wrong to throw paint and ruin those human skin jackets?
But they're humans there. That's the problem. These are
right. So okay. So you're saying it would be morally justifiable to ruin human skin jackets?
Cows, chickens, squirrels, beavers, they are not equal to us human beings.
Okay. So you agree that it would be immoral to, you agree that it would be morally justified to ruin human skin jackets?
No, it would not be justified because it's human.
No, I'm saying to ruin them. So like if an activist were to throw paint on a human skin jacket to ruin it, would you say that's morally justified?
You're missing the point there.
No, I'm just asking you a simple fucking question.
There's not going to be any human skin.
Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I'm just asking you on a principled basis. Do you think it would be wrong? Do you think it'd be wrong for a human rights activist to throw paint on a human skin jacket?
Well, there's two things wrong with it there, okay? Number one, nobody is producing human skin jackets here.
It's irrelevant.
It's wrong to throw paint on someone there, but at the same time, I mean, you're talking about two things instead of one. You know, it's wrong to throw anything at anyone there. But I mean,
so if somebody literally paid to have a human murdered and to wear their skin as a jacket, you would say it's morally wrong to dissuade them from wearing that sort of jacket by throwing paint on it.
Richard, your problem is that you speak about hypothetical things. I speak about reality. Nobody wears.
Yeah. So Vince,
hypothetical things for. I'm all about reality. You're talking about what if this, what if that. Come on.
Yeah. So Vince, the reason I bring up hypotheticals is to actually test these moral principles. Just because a hypothetical doesn't necessarily exist in reality, that doesn't mean it's not useful or relevant to discussing ethics. Like, you could make an example like the trolley problem. I'm sure you've heard this quite a few times. Like, okay, there's two people on a set of tracks, and you can press a switch to decide who's killed. So you could save one person, but that would mean killing the other person. Now, this is a hypothetical that's commonly used, and I could argue that it's completely unrealistic. Like, how were they placed on the tracks? How come nobody noticed and helped save them? How come you can't call the police or somebody else to help you to save both people? How did you get a hold of the switch to, switch train tracks when that's controlled by, like, the operator on the train? Like, there's plenty of ways you can poke holes in that hypothetical, but that's the trolley problem is something that pretty much everyone has used at some point in their lives, or has used that in a debate at some point, and nobody really questions that would never happen or anything. So, like, it doesn't matter if hypotheticals are realistic or happen in reality. The whole point of using a hypothetical is to just test these moral principles. So if your moral principle is that it's wrong to throw paint on somebody for wearing fur, then I'm just asking you, would you apply the same standard for human beings? If somebody wore a human skin jacket, would it be morally wrong to throw paint on them as a form of protest?
Well, Richard, how many people walk around with human skin jackets?
Vince,
you're a hypothetical person. I'm not. I'm all about reality. How many people walk around with human skin jackets?
I don't know, man.
Nobody.
In Silence of the Lambs. Happened in Silence of the Lambs.
So it doesn't make it. There's no point to it there. Now,
Vince, would you consider it morally wrong to throw paint on somebody wearing a human skin jacket as a form of protest? It's just a yes or no. It's just a yes or no answer.
It's an unanswerable because nobody walks around with a human.
It is answerable. Okay, so Vince, when you're reading, have you ever read any fantasy novels or watched any fantasy movies like Lord of the Rings?
I mean, I watch a lot of anime, so yeah, I've watched a lot.
Okay, sure. Okay, so when characters do certain things in these shows, can you determine whether or not they're acting ethically or unethically, even though the situations they're in would never happen in reality?
Well, I mean, when it comes to watching something as far as fantasy, whenever I'm watching Naruto, I know that in real life, people can't go and just walk and climb on buildings and throw fireballs and stuff like that. It doesn't matter. If I'm watching a movie, I know that Arnold Schwarzenegger is not going to go and just run off to an island and people up there. Again, you're speaking hypothetics. You're speaking about fantasy.
So,
one thing that you're trying to avoid is reality, and the reality is that no matter how much you protest, no matter how many plant-based burgers that you eat at KFC and Burger King, you are not only being part of the problem, you're inadvertently still supporting the meat and dairy industry. So you have to concede, no matter what you do, you're still supporting that industry, and you're not finding solutions in order to do it. Whereas I have, or at least people have. Have you ever heard of cultured beef, Richard?
okay, so Vince, when you're watching a show like Naruto and one of the main villains has the ability to take over somebody's body, would you consider that immoral? To take over somebody's body using magical powers?
Nah, that's hard to answer, I'll be honest with you.
That's hard to answer.
But, given... Well, we're talking fantasy here, so I would say yes, it would be morally wrong.
Okay, so even when something isn't realistic, would never happen in reality, you can determine whether or not something would be ethical.
Well, when it comes to watching a fantasy movie, ethics are off the table because it's not real.
Okay, so when you're seeing a villain in a fantasy movie who's like murdering people with like magical capabilities, or in the case of Naruto, forget the weird snake guy villain's name. He has the ability to take over somebody's body forcefully with magic. Like you just acknowledged, that would be morally wrong. So
if it happened,
I don't understand how you.
If it happens,
okay, so when you're watching a fantasy movie, or Naruto or something, you're telling me you can't determine who the protagonist and who the antagonist is?
Yeah, so I can make...
Or who the villain is, or who the hero is?
Of course, I can determine the hero from the villain, I will admit that.
Okay, so in a unrealistic scenario that would never happen in real life, you can determine what is right and what is wrong in that context.
Right, of course.
Okay, so then what's the issue with you answering the hypothetical that I proposed?
No, I don't see any issue there because as far as watching a movie is concerned, it's just that. It's a movie, it's not reality.
Okay, cool. So if there was somebody in Naruto who was killing people and wearing human skin as a jacket, would you say it would be immoral for hypothetical human rights activists in Naruto to throw paint on that person as a form of protest?
Oh boy. You have to understand how funny that sounds. I would be what's the best way to say it? I would be more disgusted with the killing part than the fact that he's wearing... The first thing I would think of before even thinking of him wearing a human skin jacket would be the fact that he's going around killing people.
Sure. Okay, but what about the throwing paint on him as a form of protest?
Well, I don't think it would do any good there if someone's killing people and wearing a human skin jacket. In fact, I would probably walk away from that person. But again, it's not reality.
Okay, but would you say, like, let's say Naruto, the hero in Naruto, were to throw paint on this hypothetical person wearing human skin jackets, would you say that action is immoral?
I think both of them would be immoral. Throwing the paint as well.
Okay. So throwing paint on somebody as a form of protest who's going around killing human beings and wearing human skin. You think that's immoral to throw paint on them?
I mean, it is immoral on both ends there. Because
really? Okay, that's a surprising answer.
I mean, it's just not reality there, you know? Nobody.
Okay, well, regardless of whether or not it's reality, if Naruto were doing this, you'd say he's acting immorally?
By the way, why are you obsessed with human skin jackets here anyway?
I don't know. I like Silence of the Lambs, I guess.
Yeah.
But would you say Naruto is acting immorally if he were to do that?
Well, Naruto's not going to go throw paint on him. He'll go and beat him up instead there, so it wouldn't be...
Okay, well, let's just say he decided to do that. Would he be acting immorally?
No, he wouldn't.
He wouldn't. Okay, so you changed your answer.
No, I didn't really change my answer there.
Well, you said it would be... Well, at first you said it would be immoral for Naruto to throw paint on somebody wearing a human skin jacket, and then you changed your answer saying, no, it wouldn't be immoral.
Did I say that? Okay.
Yeah, you did.
Okay, what I meant to say...
Okay.
Well, okay. My bad on that.
Okay, sure. Well, that's fine. So, hypothetically, you wouldn't have an issue with somebody throwing paint on somebody wearing a human skin jacket, essentially.
Right, but
now you would consider it immoral for somebody to throw paint on somebody wearing a fox skin jacket or a mink skin jacket.
I would consider it as illegal as well as immoral.
Well, okay, illegal. I don't care about legality, but you would say it's immoral?
Well, of course you don't care about legality. You have a criminal record, though. Come on.
No, I don't. No, I don't have a criminal record. If you search my name in a police database, I have no criminal record.
But you've been arrested before.
Yep, I've been arrested, but I have no criminal record.
Okay. But here's the thing there. As far as reality is concerned, I'm going to make 2 points here. Number one, again, nobody's walking around with a human skin jacket. Number two, walking up and throwing a bucket of paint on someone, regardless as to whether what they're wearing, is simply immoral, and it's also illegal, and you will be arrested.
Okay, sure. So
the purpose of someone throwing a bucket of paint on someone with fur is to protest the fact that they're wearing fur. Okay?
Right. So you would be fine with them throwing a bucket. So you'd be fine with them throwing a bucket on somebody wearing human skin, but you'd be against them throwing a bucket on somebody wearing animal skin. So can you name the trait? Name the trait that's lacking in animals that if lacking in trait equalized human beings would make it morally wrong to throw a bucket of paint on somebody wearing human skin from a trait equalized human being?
Well, these are two separate things, because what you're talking about as far as human skin is non-existent. What you're talking about as far as fox skin is reality there, you know? And
we've already established how that doesn't matter.
Well, Richard, let me just ask you this question. Do you think that throwing a bucket of paint on someone wearing a fur coat helps out the vegan movement in any way possible?
Yeah, I think it does, actually. Initially, a lot of those actions were really frowned upon, but what ended up happening was the public ended up getting more support for that sort of action. A lot of people feel uncomfortable having to actually justify killing animals, and a lot of this fur is coming from animals like mink or raccoon dogs, really cute fuzzy animals that are locked in these tight confined cages who are treated horribly. A lot of people felt uncomfortable having to defend fur wearers, and on top of that, a lot of fur wearers actually ended up becoming afraid of wearing these fur coats in public because they were worried vegan activists were going to throw paint on them. So no, I think that was effective. It got public... It improved public opinion, against fur wearing, and it got people afraid of even buying and wearing these fur jackets in public. And now in California, I think in at least one city, they've banned fur already. So it doesn't seem to have harmed activism.
But people have not been... I mean, here's the thing there. The reason why, the thing about veganism there is you're supposed to convince people to move away from the fur industry instead of scaring them. The reason why that person or people do not wear fur anymore is because they're probably afraid of getting a bucket of paint being thrown at them there, instead of a moral obligation there. But here's the thing there. I'm going to ask you this again because you didn't really answer it. Do you think all of your efforts that you're doing, as well as your vegan fanboys, is doing anything to affect the dairy or the chicken industry? Do you think it would? Do you think that all of the protesting you would do 50 years down the line would be of any benefit? Or would you like to find a better solution there? If I could,
I think it does have a benefit.
Okay.
I think it does have a benefit.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this question. If I told you that there was a way to get rid of the dairy industry, the chicken industry, and every other industry within 100 years, would you even listen?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to tell you what I've invested in, because I will somewhat agree with you there as far as the chicken and cow industry. The reason why I support it now is because this is the way of life. This is the mechanism we have in place in order to feed the world there. It has to be there, in other words. And right now, I mean, eventually we're going to be in a position to where with the population building, that it's going to be to the point to where we can no longer sustain. It doesn't matter how many cow and chicken farms that we set up there. It's unsustainable. So I'm going to give you the solution for you and your vegan fanboys. It has nothing to do with plant-based nutrition and setting up farmlands because there's not enough available resources. Have you ever heard of cultured beef?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I know there's 3 companies right now that are developing methods to cell culture animal products. It's not just beef. One of them is Super Meat. I don't know if they've changed their name or rebranded, but they've actually developed the technology to infinitely grow a cell line. So they could just take a muscle tissue biopsy out of an animal without really harming them and just infinitely grow that cell line. They're in Israel right now. I think they've opened up a private restaurant to taste test and perfect things. There's another company. I think the 2 other companies are based out of Asia or something.
It's called that's one of the companies I've invested in. They gone out in Japan there. So here's the thing there. It's still beef basically, and it's still being synthesized there. And I mean, and they're going to also do plants. They're actually, I checked up on it there about a couple of weeks ago. They're actually coming out with the Wagyu beef. So here's the thing. And the reason why these are being developed is for 2 things, because eventually well, not in my lifetime there, and maybe in your lifetime, because I'm pretty old, and about, in a couple of years, I'll be 50 and stuff like that. And by the time I would have an opportunity to even go in space, I probably would be sucking nutrients from a jar. I definitely wouldn't be eating meat anymore, that's for sure. But in any event, instead of running, and this is my whole thing about moral obligation, instead of running around throwing paint at people, instead of going and doing all the protesting and harassing and abusing workers that are just trying to make a living based upon the industry that's in there. And instead of instilling fear in the people to give up, meat, you could work on solutions such as cultured beef there. Why don't you do that for? I mean,
yeah, no, I agree with investing in those sorts of companies, cultured beef, Beyond Meat, Impossible Foods. I think that is a good thing to do.
Right, but we're still talking about. But you have to admit, at the end of the day, it's still beef there. So
the only thing I care about is sentience. I don't care if, there's a hypothetical product that's molecularly identical to a living animal. I just care if you're actually harming animals.
Right, and it isn't there. But the thing, and
with the two companies that are currently making lab grown meat, I think the two don't. Well, the one for sure isn't harming animals. The other one, the cell culture they were using, they have to use albumin. So it's a certain type of protein that's found in blood. The initial meat they made so far, they've been using bovine albumin, but they can switch to plant-based albumin.
right. Well, I mean, and like I said, I got news for you. In about 100 years, there's no longer going to be vegans. There's no longer going to be carnivores. There's no longer going to be, there's no longer going to be omnivores. We're going to develop the products, and in 100 years, when my bones have went to dust, these products will be around. There will be no more dairy industry. There's no more chicken industry. So my whole thing is, what is the purpose of you guys doing illegal activities as far as the vegan activism is concerned, if all of this is going to disappear in about 100 years?
Yeah, so I think it helps to increase the pace of a transition to a plant-based food system. Look, if I could even convince one person to go vegan, I think that's worth throwing paint on somebody's fur coat.
Right.
Just you're talking about saving roughly 90 animal lives per year if somebody goes vegan. So yeah, if throwing paint on somebody's fur coat even dissuades one person from buying a fur coat, I think that's mission accomplished, and I think it's doing a lot more good than that.
Right. I mean, I think we're just going to agree to disagree on that there. I mean, there's a lot of things that, I mean, it's still illegal, and I have to say that it's not on the level of the civil rights movement there. But other than that, I really don't got anything else here. You know what I mean? So.
Sure. I think you're kind of overstating the importance of legality. I mean, what Edward Snowden did, whistleblowing, that was illegal. There was that other whistleblower who released footage of
Bradley Manning.
Marines.
Excuse me, I can't call that.
Bradley Manning. I think it's Chelsea Manning now because yeah, Chelsea Manning. Apparently, this form of whistleblowing is illegal. Do you think it's wrong?
In Chelsea Manning's case, yes. Edward Snowden, I'm on the fence as far as Edward is concerned, but Chelsea, definitely wrong.
Chelsea? Really?
Mm-hmm.
Why did you think that was wrong?
The problem with the footage that was being released is that, and I guess it's because, I guess that you probably have a disagreement because you've never been in the military. In the military, there are steps that you can take in order to put things out there. In other words, it's no different than Abu Ghraib, as far as when they were abusing those prisoners. There is a chain of command that Chelsea Manning could have followed in order to bring the light. But instead, she goes and releases it to WikiLeaks. And let me finish what I'm saying. What Chelsea Manning did basically put soldiers in danger, in other words, because regardless, without any commentary, and those videos that WikiLeaks released have absolutely no commentary, no cause or anything, provides aid to our enemies here. So therefore, that's why I feel that Chelsea Manning's releasing all that information is just simply wrong. Just because of that, she did not go through the chain of command, and she could have in order to get that resolved.
Yeah, so my understanding of the event was she did try to go through the proper chain of command. No one cared. Then she went to normal news, mainstream news like New York Times and stuff. Nobody was interested in running that story. And then as a last result, she went over to WikiLeaks and released it.
Well, I mean, it looks like you got a lot of misinformation because that's not absolutely true. The reason why they didn't listen to her is because she was running around, assaulting other soldiers. In fact, right before all this happened, they had actually taken her pistol away. She was already demoted there. That's why they didn't really listen. And she never actually went through the proper channels there. I mean, I'll tell you that right now. She didn't
Okay.
go through the proper channel.
Okay.
I mean, but
Sure.
like you said, I mean, the only thing you have to go by is what you hear, and the fact that you've never been in the military. Edward Snowden, that's a little bit different there, So I'll concede that though. But
Okay, sure. Yeah, I think the only thing that I'd like you to do is just name the trait. Like, so far you've said there is no trait, and the only justification you've given for giving dissimilar rights in terms of right to life for humans and animals is just species normality. It's like normal for humans to have a higher level of intelligence. So,
I mean,
like,
the reason being is because animals do not have a right to life. I'm always gonna believe that sentient beings are always gonna kill other sentient beings. There, you can't change the trait of a wolf, a leopard, or a human being.
Okay, but we're talking about chickens and cows and pigs. Like, they're not leopards.
Yeah, I mean, but they are still animals here. And I mean, I
really doubt a cow is going to attack you and rip you apart.
No, they're not. Not a chicken will. Believe me, I've been a couple times by chickens here. I've worked on a farm before. Whenever I was growing,
yeah, they peck.
A chicken will tear you up there. It'll tear you from limb to limb. But no, a cow won't go and attack you there. So. Tipping there, you can end up having the cow tip on you, and that's not good.
So then would you concede it's immoral to kill a cow?
No, because just because it doesn't go and attack people doesn't mean it has a right to life there. The reason why we kill cows is to eat.
Okay, well, like, I mean, people have killed people to eat.
Yes, but that's illegal. How many people?
Right.
I mean, you're talking about cannibalism.
Like, this is essentially, well, dude, this is essentially question begging. Like, what I'm asking you is, like, we're arguing whether or not animals should have rights, and your only response back to me is, well, they don't have rights. It's like
they don't have rights because they are not human beings.
Yeah, but we're debating whether or not they should have rights, and so far your only response is, well, they don't have rights. Like, I know. Like, we're arguing whether or not they should have rights.
What do they have a right? I mean, what do they have a right to? They don't have a right to life. They don't.
Yeah, I know. That's the point. We're debating whether or not they should. So you just responding back saying they don't have rights, like, it's essentially just question begging. You're making a premise that assumes the conclusion is true.
Right.
Animals shouldn't have rights because they don't have rights. Like, okay.
And they don't have rights because they're not human beings.
Okay, so you're saying anything that isn't human shouldn't have rights?
That's correct.
Okay, so you think it's okay for people to do dog fighting? It's okay for people to torture animals?
Oh, that's abuse. That's unjustified. I mean,
so then you do believe animals should have rights?
Well, there's no consumption there. I mean, people.
Okay, well,
fight. I mean, believe me, I abhor dog fighting there. So don't get me wrong there. I abhor dog fighting. It's wrong, but it's the human being that should be arrested.
Right. So you do agree animals should have rights?
This has nothing to do with rights as far as dog fighting. This has to. Dogs. I mean, you shouldn't abuse dogs or animals here.
Right. So then you do believe animals should have rights. They should have at least the right to be protected from abuse.
Well, when it comes to dog fighting, yes.
Okay, well, what about cockfighting, like chicken fighting? What about if I just wanted to, like, I don't know, kick the animals that I raise for meat? Like, I'm sure you've seen footage of people smashing cows across the face with, like, a shovel and shit.
And that's wrong.
Do you think that should be illegal? Yeah, so
I agree. I fully agree with you there that, smashing a cow, and let me just go over my general beliefs. It is abhorrently wrong to abuse any type of animals whatsoever. I don't agree in sport hunting. I don't think that going and killing a moose and then leaving the rest of his carcass to rot while you go and take the head home is morally right. I mean, and it's not right there, So I will agree with you on some points. I mean, that's only. I'm going to be honest with you. That's only a that's a very small percentage of the farming industry. It doesn't speak for the entire farming industry, but
How do
it
you?
does. But I will. I agree with you that the farming and dairy industry should be eliminated, but we just simply have different reasons here. My reasoning is simply because it's not sustainable. Since we are now going into space exploration, it's not feasible to take a cow or a chicken with you into outer space. So I think we just have different reasons of getting rid of it. And I mean, if it also gets rid of abusing animals, good, because like I said, I abhor the abuse of animals here. But
Okay, well,
but the reason why animals are being abused is because of human beings, and you got to take care and punish those human beings here. So
right. So then you like, for one thing, you do agree that animals should have some rights, like protection against abuse.
in those particular terms, as far as that's concerned, yes.
Okay. And you don't believe abuse is commonplace in animal agriculture?
It's not commonplace here. I mean, maybe in your neck of the woods, not where I live. And like I said, I've lived in the South pretty much practically all my life. I lived in Asheville, and then I moved to South Carolina, and that just simply doesn't happen. It happens in a small percentage. Now, when you go to these other countries, that's a little bit different there.
Okay, so
But there's always going to be abuses in any level, whether it's schools, teachers go and abuse, students and stuff, at a church where priests go and rape choir boys and stuff. I mean, there's always going to be, no matter what type of environment, there's always going to be some abuse there. And, we have to eliminate it. Those people should be punished there. Likewise.
Okay. So would you consider it abuse if you were to put a human being into a gas chamber and make them suffocate until they're unconscious with CO2 gas? Or would you consider it abuse if you were to put an electrode either up their ass or across their head to render them unconscious?
Okay, so I'm a supporter of the death penalty. So in this particular case here, that's I'm going to be honest with you, it's kind of a hard question there, because the people that get electrodes across their head and the people that have been in the gas chamber have done some pretty serious crimes there. Now,
yeah, so I'm talking about normal people.
Well, we wouldn't
people who haven't done anything wrong. Would you say that's abusive?
Absolutely, and it's wrong, and it's happened before to where innocent people were convicted for no crime whatsoever, or like George Stein. Well, let me give you an example. George Steinme, he was executed at the age of 14 for a crime that he clearly couldn't admit it. I mean, he could have done at 14 years old. He's not going to go and whack two young ladies with a big giant tire iron. A track. I think it's one of those railroad track irons. He wouldn't have the strength to do so. So again, that brings back to my point. In any type of environment, there's going to be mistakes that's going to happen, and there's going to be abuses there that's going to happen.
Right. So if you would consider it abuse to gas somebody with CO2 until they suffocate, till they're unconscious, or if you place an electrode across their head until they're rendered unconscious, you'd consider that abuse in the human context. Well, those are two of the most common methods of stunning in animal agriculture. Well, so would you agree that abuse is widespread in animal agriculture?
Well, I mean, the only organization that actually gasses dogs and cats is PETA. Maybe you want to go and talk to them or something.
I don't see how that's relevant, and I've talked about that before. I don't agree with PETA doing that, but gassing is the most common method. Yeah, so gassing is the most common method for pigs, and electrocution is also used for pigs and chickens. With cows, it's usually a bolt gun to the head, but you're talking about the majority of animals killed in animal agriculture are either gassed to death, Well, not to death. The gassing is just to render them unconscious before their throats are slit open, or they're electrically stunned. So you'd consider that abuse in a human context. If you're talking about gassing or electrically stunning a human being who's innocent, well, animals, as far as I know, the chickens, cows, pigs, haven't committed any crime. So would you say abuse is widespread in these industries?
Well, I don't consider that abuse because, again, that's human consumption. You have to put it in a nature sense. Do you know what an African wild dog is?
I don't see how that's relevant. So I'd like you. So I'd like you to name the trait.
I'm gonna make it relevant there. Do you know how African wild dogs kill animals out in the wild?
Yeah, they rip them apart while they're fully conscious. If it were at all possible, I'd eliminate those sorts of animals from existence.
Really?
Yeah.
But they're beings here, aren't they?
Sorry?
They're sentient beings, aren't they?
Yeah, well, killing them would end up reducing the amount of rights violations and just overall suffering and death. So,
well, I mean, so in your own context, you're admitting that you would actually kill animals. So there you go.
Yeah, if it meant saving more animals and reducing rights violations, yeah. I'm in favor of killing human beings if that's the only way to stop them from killing other people.
Well, we do kill human beings there. That's what the police are around for. I mean,
yeah, and I'm in favor of that. If it ends up reducing rights violations and the amount of suffering and death, then I'm in favor of it. So I don't see how that's a problem or at all hypocritical in any way.
So you would actually eliminate African wild dogs there?
Yeah, if it would reduce rights violations and reduce suffering and death in the animal kingdom, I'd be in favor of it.
But, here's the thing. Why does an African wild dog rip apart another animal while they're alive?
Well, for one thing, it's because they don't have moral agency, and two, they do it for survival.
Well, I mean,
I don't see
that's not a moral. I mean, so it's not okay to kill a chicken or cow, but it's okay to eliminate an entire species. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, because it's reducing the amount of rights violations.
My God, what kind of vegan are you there anyway?
Vince,
you're the first vegan person that I'm going to be honest with you. You're the first vegan person that I've ever heard that would go and eliminate an entire species of animals. What other animals would you eliminate other than African wild dogs?
Any carnivorous animal, assuming it would reduce the amount of rights violations and suffering and death in the animal kingdom. So, Vince, have you ever seen Tokyo Ghoul?
Of course. I love their
Yes. Yeah, so in Tokyo Ghoul, do you think humans are morally justified to kill ghouls who are killing humans?
I'll be honest with you, I love that show. No, in the Tokyo Ghoul world, it's not right to kill other ghouls.
You would, okay, so if we were living in the Tokyo Ghoul universe and there were ghouls who were murdering human beings, you just let them.
Well, that's an entirely different world. That's an entirely different situation here. Again, but we're talking about fantasy. I mean, we are. I mean,
why would you want human beings to be murdered en masse?
I don't want human beings murdered en masse there, but you're talking.
Well, you just said if you were living in Tokyo Ghoul, you'd let ghouls just murder human beings. At least
I said it was morally wrong for human beings to not only murder ghouls or human beings, because in the Tokyo Ghoul universe, they're pretty much on, and at least this is my interpretation, they're at least on even levels here. Because I mean that's Tokyo Ghoul there.
Well, they're not on even levels. Ghouls have to murder. I think in the anime they talked about roughly one person per month. Yeah, they have to at least eat one person per month.
Yeah, in order to.
It doesn't have to be. Yeah, they don't have to kill people. They could get people who committed suicide. That's what some of the ethical ghouls do. But as far as the ghouls who just go out and hunt and murder people, why would you not be in favor of killing them?
Well, we're talking about, again, we're talking about the Tokyo Ghoul universe. And if we lived in the Tokyo Ghoul universe, I would be within 100% of in agreement with you on that. But we don't live in Tokyo Ghoul. We live in
Okay. Well, the closest real life analogy would be, wild African dogs ripping apart, whatever random animals they come across. I don't know what they really fucking eat. I'm assuming they baby gazelle or something.
Well, I mean, lions also do that. So, I mean, would you eliminate
Yeah.
a lion?
Well, yes. Like, okay, so Vince, if you'd be in favor of killing ghouls who are killing human beings, why wouldn't you be in favor of killing these animals like, wild dogs or lions?
Well, that's because, I mean, the reason being is it's because the way nature made those African wild dogs there, and they're not, and you're talking about rights. You can't write an African wild dog a parking ticket or anything. Nature created African wild dogs there. They created vultures to eat dead bodies. They created lions and tigers there. You have to respect nature. It's biodiversity. Now, like I said, watching National Geographic, it's kind of disgusting for African wild dogs to go and eat another animal alive. But just like the Mandalorian, this is the way. This is, some animals do disgusting things. There's a certain bug that goes and zombifies other insects. I can't remember the name.
No, it's a fungus, I think.
Well, there's also an insect that actually zombifies and
oh no, I think it's wasps that do that to spiders.
Yeah, it's kind of a wasp. But the thing about it is that one thing that you vegans forget about is biodiversity and conservation as well. The purpose of me going out, and I've not hunted deer in quite some time there because I moved into this home. I don't have a freezer in order to keep it. So on occasion, I go over a friend's house, they throw me a couple chops there. That's all that fits in my fridge. But the reason why we kill deer is not just for consumption, it's for conservation purposes, because if the deer get overpopulated, they would literally rip apart and destroy that farmland, and the places they'll tear up any plants that's out there, and that's the purpose of that. The reason why there's a duck hunting season is because ducks can get overpopulated and they'll spread disease, germs, and their droppings will, bring on rodents and everything. But I'm still surprised that I'm going to be honest with you, you are the first vegan that would eliminate carnivores just for the nature of the animal itself there.
Yeah, so Vince, do you want more animals or less animals to be harmed?
I don't want no animals being harmed.
Okay, well, if you had the choice between more animals or less animals being harmed, which would you choose?
Probably less animals. That's why I'm working with companies to help develop and investing in cultured beef.
Right, okay, so if you have that goal, then why would you not be in favor of killing carnivorous animals?
Well, what did the carnivorous animal do? What crime?
They murder other animals.
No, they didn't. Again, murder is humans and humans here.
Well, I don't care what euphemism you'd prefer me to use. We're talking about the same thing.
Why does an African wild dog kill an animal for?
That doesn't matter.
Yes, it does.
The problem is they're killing other animals, and they're doing it in a horrifically painful way. So if your goal is to reduce the amount of animals that are harmed, why would you not be in favor of killing carnivorous animals?
It's kind of, I'm sorry, it's kind of weird that now it sort of seems like...
Well, sure, we're like a little off topic, but I mean...
well, it feels like I'm switching sides with you. Now I'm actually advocating for the animal, and you're now advocating for killing an animal there. So
yeah, I guess.
You can understand.
I'm advocating for saving animals because killing carnivorous animals ends up saving more animals.
No, it doesn't. It reduces. It reduces our level of biodiversity, because remember what I stated in the beginning there. And I'll just use this example since we're talking about African wild dogs. when they go and kill that animal, basically, it rots and decomposes, gets decomposed into nutrients. The plants eat it. Cows eat the plants. We kill the cow. It decomposes, and it's that cycle of life, basically. So, I mean, that's just what things are there. There's, you know, an African wild dog is going to do what it's going to do, you know?
Okay, so does that same principle apply to humans? If I were to like kill another human and eat it and poop it out,
Well, that's what makes
like just circle of life, does that justify anything?
well, that's what makes us different from animals. You know, we have moral thought there. Animals don't. Animals are going to do as intended as far as nature is concerned. Your dog, for example, you whether a dog loves you or not, the reason why dogs come up to human beings is because they see them as a potential food source, because you're going to feed the dog. You try not feeding a dog for at least a couple of days and see how it acts at you. It will no longer consider you as a food source, and it'll tear you to pieces here. The reason why butterflies land on humans is not because they like them, it's because they smell blood. You know, they consider it as is basically instinct there. Animals act only on, for the most part, act on instinctive nature. Now, I can't.
Well, so do humans.
Souls or not, or anything like that, but you know, that's the major thing there. Animals act. I mean, animals for the most part act upon, you know, what their natural abilities are. Nature. Human beings make decisions here. We made the decision to build the infrastructure of the world there. We built skyscrapers, we built trains, the computer that we're talking on, and everything. Animals have
so right. So when we have civil wars in Liberia where people are, you know, committing ritualistic human sacrifice and eating other people because they think it will give them powers of invincibility, and other people who are caught in the war, who are like collateral damage, who can't get any food, are eating human beings that are killed off the street. Do you think that's some sort of higher logical or moral reasoning, or do you think that's weird instinct?
Well, that's a unique circumstance, and there's also been but to answer your question, it's just one of those horrible things of war. I mean, and I'll point, there was a plane crash back in the 70s there.
Yeah, and they ate people on the crash, yeah.
So you're talking about very unique circumstances, but at the end of the day, the reason why they ate those human beings is not because they didn't like them, is because they did it to survive, to eat, you know?
Yeah, so my point is we have instincts and will act upon our nature. So I don't know how you can say it's wrong for a human to kill another human being, but then you use this, oh, well, it's natural argument when it comes to animals killing other animals or people killing animals.
Well, simply because some of the things you've described there is, you know, abuse there as far as an unjustifiable murder. You know, as human beings, we have to make that determination. Different countries.
All right, cool. Can you define unjustifiable?
Unjustifiable means no reason whatsoever to go and kill something, you know?
No reason whatsoever?
Yeah.
Well, you can always come up with a reason. Like, okay, I could kill somebody for fun. That's a reason.
Yes, that's why we have laws for, you know. Laws make...
Well, you defined unjustifiable as no reason whatsoever, so I just gave you a reason.
Right, but is it illegal? Just go.
Okay, well, we've established legality doesn't really have much to do with morality. Did you think slavery was moral?
Well,
it was legal.
Yeah, that's right. It was legal. And I mean, but you're talking about slavery was the way of the world at that particular time until, you know, we recognized that slavery was simply wrong. And slavery still happens even in African countries there. You know, we're talking about basically world history. I mean, one thing is for sure, you know, I used to work as a telemarketer, and, you know, that's non-existent. I used to work at a department store, Montgomery Ward, and I used to work on commission. You know, things change basically. Slavery was acceptable years ago, and now it is no longer acceptable there. And that's
Okay, so Vince, you
well,
defined unjustifiable.
let me finish what I'm saying because because I'm gonna turn it around, and it's the same as far as the cow and the dairy industry. We're reaching an apex to where it's no longer sustainable, and in 100 years, we're not going to have them anymore. So you're talking about the passage of time in this particular case, to where things that used to be acceptable are no longer acceptable.
Okay, so Vince, you defined unjustifiable as doing something for no reason whatsoever. So I just gave you a hypothetical where I killed somebody for fun. Is that a justifiable killing?
No, it isn't.
Okay, so then your definition of unjustifiable makes no sense.
Well, what determines it is not my personal opinion. It's the laws that are created there by the people that are in charge, our government.
So slavery was justifiable?
By the government there at that point in time, yes. Once the government changed, once we had the Civil War, it was no longer justifiable there. So
okay, so you're saying slavery was justifiable, but then when the laws changed, it was unjustifiable.
yes, and the laws changed in different areas there. For example, England.
Okay.
Well, let me finish what I'm telling you. In England, slavery was abolished long before it was done in America. And here's the thing: this is a very complicated subject as far as slavery is concerned. My great grandparents were slaves there, so I mean, like I said, they were slaves there. So it really hits me when you mention the word slavery. But at the end of the day, this is just the passage of time. This is the way things were. I mean, my mom still tells me stories about not being able to drink from water fountains, not being being very careful as far as walking around white folks, not being able to go around the back of a restaurant though, and that was actually legal there, But I don't think and even at some point, I'm sure at some point in time, maybe back to the caveman days, that it was right to go skin a human being and make a jacket out of it there, But the laws that are here today, and this is reality, Richard, are not to the point to where killing a chicken and a cow is not justified, because we still need for food.
So Vince, you're saying anything is justified so long as it's legal?
Well, you're talking about two different things. I think you missed my point on this here.
You gave a definition of justifiable, which was unjustifiable, which is anything that's committed for absolutely no reason. Then I gave you the hypothetical, okay, murdered somebody for fun. Fun is a reason. Then you said that's unjustifiable. Then you changed your definition of justifiable as something that is legal. So
right.
Anything that's legal is justifiable?
But here's the thing, I don't make the rules as far as to what's justified and unjustified.
Okay, so Vince, is anything that's illegal justifiable, in your opinion?
Yes. I mean,
okay, so the Holocaust was justifiable since Hitler made it legal?
In his country, it was legal. Everywhere else...
So the Holocaust was justifiable, in your opinion?
Well, no, remember what I just said there. To Hitler, and at the time of Nazi rule, they considered it legal and justifiable. The world saw it differently, and that's why we fought wars here. But at any point in time, you're never going to see a war fought over a cow or a chicken whatsoever, unless someone's trying to.
Okay. So Vince, in Germany, the Holocaust was justified.
Excuse me.
In Germany, the Holocaust was justified because it was legal.
I just answered it for you there.
Right, so yes or no, was the Holocaust in Germany justified because it was legal?
To me, it wasn't justified. But in terms of Hitler and Nazi Germany, they considered it justified. Different.
So if you were living in Nazi Germany at the time, would you say the Holocaust was justified because it was legal?
If I lived in Nazi Germany at the time there, well, would I be living as a black person or white person there?
Well, there were black people in Nazi Germany, and they lived there.
Well, I mean,
So,
if a black person lived in Nazi Germany at the time, the one thing they would not be doing is making the rules in Nazi Germany.
so would you say that if you were living in Nazi Germany at the time, would you say that the Holocaust was justified?
Well, the point I'm trying to make is justifiable and unjustified is dependent upon where you live and what time it is, basically. I mean,
Right. So, if you lived in Nazi Germany in World War II, you would say that the Holocaust was justified.
if I was in the German government and I was white and I was brought up to where Jews were inferior, that's the way it was. But that's not the case there. One thing, and here's the thing: there, you're trying to put a broad brushstroke on justifiable and unjustified. Let's get back down to common sense there. There's you speak as far as this hypothetical bullshit is concerned, but you're still not addressing the issues itself as far as the reason why there's farms and the fact
Vince,
that nature and everything.
So you said it's justifiable to kill animals,
Well, you get off.
and I'm trying to understand what definition of justifiable you're going with.
There's not a broad definition. That's my whole point there. I just made the point that in certain countries that it's justifiable, in other countries it isn't. We don't eat dogs here in the US, but if you go to South Korea, oh yeah, they're cooking roast.
Okay, well, Vince, if you're going with this definition of justifiable, then you're essentially question begging. You're making an argument. You're making an argument where the premise assumes the conclusion is true. So you're saying we're trying to argue over whether or not it should be legal or illegal to, farm animals, kill them en masse for meat, and you're saying it is morally acceptable to kill animals because it's legal. The whole thing we're debating is whether or not it should be legal. So if you're going to say it should be legal because it's legal, that's just question begging. That's a completely fallacious argument.
Bullshit. I'm speaking from reality, and you're speaking from hypothetical.
All right, okay, so I think the debate's over if you're not going to acknowledge your question begging.
You are dipping in and out as far as to justifiable and unjustifiable. That's not reality. That is not the point. What we're talking about is the moral obligations of the milk, food, dairy industry, and everything spoken there has nothing to do with it. You have been diverting the entire subject off these hypothetics. I mean, we're talking about Tokyo.
I'm not talking about hypotheticals right now. I'm just pointing out your entire argument is fallacious.
What does Tokyo Ghoul and Naruto have to do with...
I'm not talking about Naruto or Tokyo Ghoul. I'm asking what your definition of justifiable is. And your definition of justifiable just ends up making your entire argument question begging.
No, you just brought it up there. The minute I go and talk about reality and things are at hand, you go off into this tangent there. You speak of hypothetical bullshit there, and it's not reality.
I'm not talking about hypotheticals. Vince, you claimed that it's justifiable to eat meat. I asked what your definition of justifiable is. Your definition is anything that a society deems as legal. Since we're debating over whether or not it should be legal to kill and eat animals, you're question begging. You're saying it should be legal to kill and eat animals because it's legal. That's question begging.
No, it isn't.
That argument is fallacious.
You're trying to base my values and compare them to someone else's there, and that's the whole point I'm making.
I'm not comparing your values. I asked you directly what you meant by justifiable.
Let me finish what I'm telling you here. When I was born and I was taught there, I was given my own values here. I didn't grow up in Nazi Germany. If I grew up in Nazi Germany and joined the Hitler Youth, I would obviously be going out and killing Jews there. But here's the thing. I didn't grow up in Nazi Germany. I was not as Hitler Youth. So when it comes to justifiable and unjustifiable, it all depends on the passage of time. It depends on how you were brought up there. That's it, Richard. That's what determines.
Vince.
You're asking me personally what's justifiable and not justifiable, and then you're going off on this tangent. Well, what if I was here? What if I was there? Who gives a fuck whether I was here?
Okay. Vince.
The only thing I can go by is my values as far as how I grew up there. My job is not to go and determine what other people's values are. You have different values than I do, as far as what's justifiable and not justifiable. If you feel that, making someone into a jacket and throwing paint that's your value. I'm not going to go and debate your own personal values there. And if you want to go and kill African wild dogs, to me, my personal values is it's wrong because African wild dogs are doing as part of nature. But
okay, so Vince, do you believe anything is morally... So do you not believe in any evil or wrongdoing since everybody could have their own personal beliefs?
Well, I do, but my values are different than yours as far as what is evil and what isn't. And that's my simple point there,
Right, okay. So,
your values are different than mine. We grew up different. Differently there,
So, Vince, the problem I have here is that you claimed eating meat is justifiable. I asked you what the definition of justifiable is, and you ended up saying essentially whatever you believe is justifiable is justifiable. So if you're going to use that definition of justifiable, since we're arguing over whether or not it's, justifiable or whether or not it should be legal to kill and eat animals, you're question begging. You are making an argument where the premise assumes the conclusion is true. So you're saying it is justifiable to kill animals because it's justifiable.
No, I didn't say that.
That doesn't make any sense.
No, it's justifiable to kill chickens and cows because that's what we eat. It is not justifiable to kill a dog because we don't eat dogs here in this country. And it's also
you're just making a very slight variation on what I just said. No, you're saying it's okay to kill and eat animals because we kill and eat animals.
Hey, Richard, how many hypothetical statements have I actually made?
I'm not talking about hypotheticals. I'm talking what you literally just said.
How many what ifs have I? All you've been going on to defend yourself is what ifs. You have not been speaking about reality. You just haven't. So
we are discussing reality. We're talking about your own beliefs and the issues with your arguments.
Is there any reality out there to where people are making human jackets?
I'm not talking about human jackets. I'm talking about what you just said.
But you just made my point there,
I'm talking about what you just said. You literally just said it's justifiable to kill and eat animals because we kill and eat animals. That's question begging.
No, I've already pointed it out to you. We kill cows and chickens to eat. I've already said that a million times there.
Okay.
Let me finish. Okay. So, we don't kill animals just to kill animals as far as the terms of cows and chickens. We don't kill dogs here because that's our values. In India, cows are sacred. In America, fuck the cows, We eat them,
Okay, so you would be against me making a dog farm?
Excuse me?
You would be against me making a dog farm where I kill dogs and sell them as meat?
Well, you couldn't do it in Canada because it's illegal. You would be arrested.
Well, no, not. Who knows? I don't know if it is or not.
So you're saying it's legal in Canada to go and have...
I don't know. It's legal to kill and eat rabbits, and they're kept as pets. I don't know. Maybe nobody's just done it before. I have no idea.
I mean, I've eaten rabbits before, and that's...
Okay. So Vince, would you be... Supposing it was legal in Canada to have a dog meat factory, would you be against that? Would you have a moral issue with that?
I would have a moral issue with that because of my values and growing up in America, as well.
All right.
Let me let me finish here.
I'm gonna ask you about name the trait.
No,
that's all I need to know.
We're not gonna do the trait sheet. What you're gonna do is let me finish here, and let me finish what I'm telling you here. As far as eating dogs are concerned, because I grew up in the United States of America, and I already know that eating dogs is illegal in the United States of America.
Is it?
It's illegal. Now, if I grew up,
What law? What law?
I told you, let me finish what I'm saying. So if I grew up in South Korea and my mother fed me dog every single day for 20 years, I would probably think that it is legal to eat dogs. Okay?
So apparently, it wasn't until 2017 that the Dog and Cat Meat Trade Prohibition Act was introduced, where it was illegal to slaughter dogs and cats in the United States for human consumption. That wasn't until 2017. I just quickly Googled this.
Well, I mean, that's because, and that goes back to my thing about the passage of time. As time goes by, values change.
Okay, Vince, can you name the trait between a dog and a cow? Can you name the trait that's lacking in a cow that, if lacking in a dog, would justify a dog meat trade?
Say that again one more time. That's confusing there.
Okay, sure. So the name the trait argument just asks you to create a symmetry breaker, like some sort of dissimilarity between a being and another being. So in this case, a dog and a cow. So can you name the dissimilarity or the trait difference between a cow and a dog, where supposedly a cow is lacking some sort of trait that gives a dog a right to life? But if that trait were also lacking in a dog, in order to be logically consistent, you'd have to be in favor of, allowing that dog to be slaughtered for meat.
Well, traits don't determine the right for life there, Richard. But to answer your question, a cow is an herbivore, and it is bred for consumption. A dog isn't. A dog is a man's best friend. It's bred for companionship, with the exception of South Korea, which I'm aware of that law being passed.
Okay, so if I were to breed cows to be pets, it would be wrong to kill those cows?
Well, if you're breeding them as pets then you wouldn't kill them to begin with.
Well, suppose I did both. I bred them as pets and for meat. Whoever bought them could do whatever they want with them.
Well, it'd be legal.
That doesn't matter to me whether it's legal or not.
But here's the thing. It would. You're talking about legality. You can go and keep a cow as a pet.
Oh my god, dude! You're not responding to what I'm saying. You're just going off on some tangent about legality. I'm asking you to name some sort of meaningful difference. I'm asking you to name some sort of meaningful difference between a cow and a dog, which makes it okay to kill a cow, but not okay to kill a dog. And can you name the difference? Can you explain to me the difference between a cow and a dog, where it's okay to kill a cow but not a dog?
Okay, I've already explained it a million times there. That's what we do around here. In America,
that's question begging. That's question begging.
Let me finish what I'm telling you here, okay? All right, what you're doing is, complete bullshit there, and I'm going to tell you why here. You're trying to compare how we treat dogs and how we treat cows here. And I'm gonna go over this one more time so you can hear it loud and clear. In America, we have laws. In America, we have different treatments for different animals depending on the animal. As far as cows are concerned, we don't keep cows as pets. For the most part, we keep cows to eat. When it comes to dogs, we don't keep dogs to eat. We keep dogs for companionship. That's just the way it is. It doesn't matter what kind of trait it is. It doesn't matter if both of them are sentient. It doesn't matter if a cow will come up and lick you on the face and be friendly to you. It doesn't matter if a cow doesn't run around and attack people. It's just a fucking cow. And we eat cows.
All right. Debate is over. So you're not able to name a trait. All you're doing is appealing. All you're doing is appealing to cultural norms. All you're doing is appealing to cultural norms, which is essentially question begging. We're debating whether or not it should be morally like acceptable or legal to kill these animals. Your only response is, "Well, we do it now, so it's okay." Like, it's just question begging. We're done, dude. You just keep.
No, you're freaking done there.
No, you're done. Okay.
As far as legality,
you're done.
All you've done is hypothetical stuff there. But I mean, I guess we are done because we're done. All we're gonna do is agree to disagree. So you can go and continue.
I'm not agreeing to disagree. You're just fucking wrong.
No, you're fucking wrong there. You're fucking wrong. So you can go and continue to go and throw paint at fur wearers. You can continue to protest while I'm up there producing solutions, and you continue to produce problems. And hopefully you don't go to jail over it there. Okay?
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Take care.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming on, dude. I'll link your channel in the description after the debate.
Sure thing. It was a pleasure.
Okay.
I know it ended like this and everything, but I'm glad you brought me on here, so we can hash things out there and so.
Yeah, for sure. No hard feelings, dude. Take care.
Maybe we can. I mean, this is a gentleman's joust there, so it's cool.
Yeah, sure.
All right. So.
All right. Take care, man.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that got pretty retarded at the end there. Yeah, he wasn't able to name a trait throughout the entire debate. He was unable to name a trait, and essentially what he ended up saying was, it's justifiable to kill animals because we do it now, which isn't like, it's not a valid argument. It's just question begging. So, yeah, that was insane. I expected it to kind of go that way, but, what can you do? Let's see. I'm gonna try to get the fucking Streamlabs bot to work. So if you have any questions or anything to say, donation links in the description and shit. Let me adjust this. There we go. Yeah, sure. Might as well.
This is fucking amazing, lol.
Yeah, that was a pretty hilarious debate. I didn't get, like, mad or frustrated in any way. It was just funny. I mean, it's okay to eat animals because we eat animals. Oh my god. And having a black guy say slavery was justified because we did slavery, like, what the fuck? I love... Like, what? It's just insane. Like, apparently he even had family members that were slaves. It's like, Jesus Christ. Yeah, it was okay to keep my family members as slaves because, they were slaves. Like, oh my god. Astro Cabbage donated $2. Social change is achieved by making society uncomfortable with cultural norms, so in that regard, vegan activism is effective. Yeah. There was a time when people were uncomfortable with women voting and black people having the same rights as white people, yeah. Like, just claiming something is morally acceptable because we do it is just crazy. Like, I don't fucking... It's just insane. But thanks for the nation, Astro Cabbage. Yeah, so what he said was, anything is justified so long as it's legal. So according to him, slavery was justified because it was legal and we did it. It's totally crazy, man. That was fucking hilarious. I don't know why they... You'd think they'd give up and just say, you're right, it's wrong to kill animals. But they go to justifying slavery. And he's a black guy who admitted his family members were slaves. Yeah, legality equals morality. Oh my god. That was insane. I did get him to concede, essentially, on the vegan nutrition side of things. You know, he tried to play weird games like, okay, well, we don't see any vegan Mr. Olympia, you know, top bodybuilders. And, you know, I pointed out the half Asian, half black thing. So he did end up conceding, like, okay, sure, if you eat a appropriately planned diet in ideal circumstances, you're not disadvantaged, you know, when it comes to building muscle and strength as a vegan. Relucto donated $2. That's why I only go to McDonald's twice per day, and I donate $1 a month to cultured beef production. Yeah. The whole McDonald's, well, the KFC thing, he said I'm supporting animal agriculture when I buy plant-based products from KFC, but he couldn't explain how that's not the case when I buy plant-based products from the grocery store. But yeah, apparently he's doing more than me to promote veganism because he's invested in cultured meat. But thanks for the donation, Relucto. Appreciate it. Cheese boigas, yeah. If there's an afterlife where Vincent's ancestors can meet him, he's in for a wild ride, yeah. Holy crap. At the end he said, fuck the trait, they're just cows? Yeah. Fuck is the trait? Yeah, that's like saying F the trait, they're just black. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Vince Goodrum donated $2. The trait is that dogs were meant for companionship in Murica. Yeah. It makes no sense. I don't see how culture or geographical location makes something ethical or unethical. Like, he's gay. He's openly gay. It's like, okay, is being gay morally wrong in Saudi Arabia? Like, I don't see how geographical location or the culture you happen to be in makes it moral or immoral to do something. Like, it's bizarre. But thanks to the nation, Vince Goodrum.
I'm not being vegan anymore because cows in Naruto can't build cars.
Yeah, oh my god. That was a hilarious point in the debate where he would not respond to the hypothetical I proposed. And I had to ask him, okay, he's a Naruto fan and he watches anime. So I had to ask him, okay, in Naruto, if this were to happen. That was so funny, but yeah. Thanks for the donation, Vibs Cartel.
If Naruto can build cars, is it ethical for him to wear human skin of those who can't?
Yeah, apparently, according to Vince Goodrum, or at least if it's legal. I think if it's legal for Naruto to kill people who can't build cars, then it's morally acceptable. But thanks for the donation, Dennis. Doc Sampson, $20. Imagine telling your sweet grandson about the hardships, killing, rape, and continued injustice done against your ancestors, only for him to say, whoops, guess you were in the wrong place, wrong time. Like, yeah, oh my god. He'd actually tell his ancestors that, you know, the hardships they went through with slavery and racism was justified because it was legal at the time. Fucking crazy, but thanks for the nation, Doc. How did the debate go? Pretty well. I mean, I won, just easily. And it was fun. Like, it was just hilarious. Just watching the, like, ridiculous reasoning he'd use. Vince Goodrum is a living meme. Yeah, pretty much. I like his name, Goodrum. It's a funny name. Just saw a leg go by, that would have to be Jasmine. I'm not high, donated $2. Well, I don't think he understands question begging. Yeah, I don't think he understood it either. Dark Matter 2525 made a video on this about religion. Like, if I grow up believing something that doesn't make it true, everyone around me believing the same thing doesn't make it true. Yeah, I don't think he understood question begging. I tried to explain it to him, but it wasn't getting through to him. I think if he understood it, what the hell's going on? I think if he understood it, he wouldn't, where's my fucking phone? Oh. There we are. Yeah, I think if he understood it, he wouldn't have... I don't think he would have used that, that sort of argument, because he would have realized it was foolish. But thanks for the nation. I'm not high. Justin St. Bernard in 241. Orochimaru did nothing wrong. Yeah, like, I mean, they're living in a weird feudal ninja society with, like, no laws, so I guess with no laws, it's okay to do anything. So yeah, Orochimaru did nothing wrong. It's so weird. Johnny donated $2. Is it bad if I eat 1,500 milligrams of folate per day from Whole Foods, and is there anything I should be careful with? And by the way, take enough B12. No, as long as you're getting folate through whole sources, there's no risk of overdosing. It's only with folate supplements, so I wouldn't worry about getting really high levels of folate from just normal food. And yeah, just make sure you supplement with B12, and then you're all good. But thanks for the nation, Johnny. Wayward Hummus donated $2. Richard, this guy was very smart. You were just too slow to understand his solid reasoning. It is okay to kill and eat animals because this is the way, though. If it bleeds, we can kill it. We do it now. Yeah. Apparently, everything's okay because we just do it. I don't know how the fuck somebody could come up with that idea. It's just so bizarre. Shit. Crap. Okay, I'll stream for another, like, 3-4 minutes. Just ask your last questions and I'll end it, and then I'll probably stream later. Do you consider Vince a bad actor or just dumb? He's just a dumb guy. He's just dumb. How's your mom? I don't know. I'm assuming she's okay. Haven't met her in a while. She works at a hospital, so I don't want to come into close contact with her. Laws can't change if people have no opinion on laws other than their laws. Yeah, I don't understand how you can expect to influence social change if you just think everything that exists or happens is morally acceptable. Like, it's just idiotic. Rock Hard Floppy McBaggies donate $2. Rock Hard Floppy McBaggies are an ever-present reality in the universe, and booby loobies are sexually gratifying. Grab hold of a set and get ripping. Love you, good veganing. Well, thank you for that beautiful poem. Very informative as well. Appreciate the donation, dude. When's the Avi versus Israel debate? Apparently they're still scheduling, but hopefully it happens soon. Anonymous donated $2. I knew you from the boy who filmed his grandfather. You've come a long way. I like the new vegan gains. Keep it up. Well, thanks, dude. Yep, I've grown and matured since then, but thanks, Anonymous. He shut his brain down, said legality equals morality, and that there's no trait difference. It's ethical to eat them because we eat them. Yeah, it's... I don't know, that might have been the dumbest take yet. Like, most people, if they can't name a trait, like, they'll just say, we have to do it, or else we'll all die or something, but no, he just said, we do it, so it's okay.
Should I buy a PS5 or a gaming quality laptop like the Asus ZenBook Duo?
It depends. Asus ZenBook Duo. Let me take a look. I don't think that's really a gaming laptop. Let me see the specs. Let me see. I'm looking on the Asus website, and this really doesn't look like a gaming laptop at all. It's got a Core i7. Yeah, no, it's not a gaming laptop. GeForce MX 250, that wouldn't be adequate. You'd be better off, if you want a dedicated gaming machine, getting PlayStation 5. If you're doing any kind of professional work on a laptop, like, you know, obviously that'd be priority, but that would not be suitable to play modern games. If you're going to get a gaming laptop, make sure you get a gaming laptop preferably with like an i7 or i9, or one of AMD's, you know, like a Threadripper or something. And you'd at least want an RTX graphics card, so like an RTX 3060 or something. So, and the reason I'd recommend that for a laptop is because you can use DLSS, which is really, really handy, especially in a laptop. But thanks for the nation, April, Erica, Sorefleet. Hope that helps. Andrew Chaplowitz donated $3. Richard, Impossible Foods, GMO soy versus Beyond Beef, pea protein preference. Okay, so I'd probably go with Beyond Beef. I think they have relatively the same amount of saturated fat, but the Impossible Foods has heme iron in it. Heme iron does not appear to be good for you. Consumption of heme iron is associated with heart disease, increased risk of certain cancer, and diabetes. Part of that correlation could be from, you know, heme iron rich foods just being, you know, red meat, which is high in saturated fat and shit. So it might not be entirely the heme iron directly, but there is some mechanistic data suggesting that because heme iron is a pro-oxidant, it can, you know, modify your lipoproteins, which makes them more atherogenic, and there might also be some pathways where it could influence cancer risk and diabetes. So I'd probably say Beyond Beef is a bit healthier, but I don't think it's a huge difference. Chances are whichever one if one has significantly less saturated fat, that's probably the one you'd want to go with. GMO soy and whatever, none of that shit matters. But thanks for the nation, Andrew. Hope that helps. Robot Hands donate $2. Why do we do it? Because it's illegal. Why is it legal? Because it is. I wonder, though, if you think it might be better to sterilize wild animals because they don't have a choice but to violate rights, therefore should be able to maintain as much rights as possible. No, so the hypothetical I'd give you is if there were, I don't know, a race of human beings that had to kill and eat other human beings. So, anime example would be Tokyo Ghoul. If sterilizing ghouls from Tokyo Ghoul would prevent them from reproducing, would that be enough? No, they'd still keep murdering human beings. So, no. I don't think that would be a suitable compromise. Best case scenario would be to place, some of these carnivorous animals in captivity and basically give them vegan cat and dog food. But yeah, that's really the only compromise that would be sensible. Thanks for the nation, though, Robot Hands. Post the Rayleigh video to your channel. Yeah, I'm going to. Augusta donated $3. Latest guest, David Sinclair on Joe Rogan, talked about fasting and longevity. He believes aging is a treatable disease. Any thoughts? There is currently no evidence that fasting in humans increases longevity. The health-promoting benefits of fasting is just as reduce of caloric control and weight loss and just eating fewer foods that cause disease. So if you eat a lot of meat but you practice fasting, okay, well, you're going to end up eating less meat and eating less calories in general. So you're less likely to be overweight. You're going to have a better ability to control your cholesterol, shit like that. But there's no evidence in humans currently that fasting itself has any health benefits. So many gurus nowadays think fasting is some magical tool for mental clarity, longevity. Yeah, there's no evidence for it. It's just bullshit. But thanks to the nation. Augusta, vegan donated $2. Off topic, but are you agnostic or atheist? I'm atheist. If you could provide adequate evidence that God exists, I'd change my position, but I'm atheist. Thanks for the donation, though, vegan. Rock Hard Floppy McBaggies donated $2. Heme iron is the greatest thing in the world for human beings and their arterial health overall. I have not seen evidence for that. Artery clearing possibilities are within the art of grasping a juicy set of booby loobies and assy cheeks. Love you. Have a good rest of the day. Well, thank you for the scientific knowledge, Rock Hard Floppy McBaggies. Appreciate
not all
it.
creatine monohydrate vegan. I just buy the bulk supplements from Amazon.
Yeah, I'm pretty certain all the creatine, like just pure creatine monohydrate that you can get, is vegan. I've never heard of creatine coming from gelatin. I'm not sure about that. I'll look more into it just to be sure, but I'm pretty certain all modern creatine supplements are vegan. But I'll look into that. Thanks for the nation, though, Vibs Cartel. Random Name Generator donated $2. You've mentioned that a vegan diet doesn't reverse heart disease. Were you talking about atherosclerosis? Yeah, so specifically, I was talking about atherosclerotic coronary artery disease. There's no evidence that a vegan diet can reverse that particular issue. Now, atherosclerosis tends to be systemic, so if you have atherosclerotic plaque, like around your coronary arteries, you'd also expect to see plaque elsewhere in your body. Again, I haven't seen any evidence that you can reverse atherosclerosis on a vegan diet. Dr. Avi and I did several streams talking about that, so you probably want to check out those streams. But essentially, these plant-based doctors like Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, they've not provided adequate evidence. They've done shit like use angiograms, which aren't adequate for measuring plaque volume, and they've also done really shady shit and have essentially flat out lied about what their research suggests. So I'd recommend checking out those streams. All right. So hope you guys enjoyed the stream. I had a lot of fun debating Vince. Probably stream later on today. Big thanks to everyone who donated in Streamlabs, and as always, keep making those vegan gains.